You're back live on Speed Channel. The Rolex 24 at Daytona, the famed Daytona International Speedway. What a place, what a venue, what a racetrack. Steeped in history and loved by so many drivers and fans. We've got a beautiful day here in Florida, and the drivers are very passionate about this place. Let's hear what they have to say about the great Daytona.
I've done Daytona, you know, every year from 1971, I think was the first year I've been here. So I love this place.
It's really special when you drive through that bridge the first time and see the size of this bowl. You could probably put 3 or 4 football stadiums inside here, so it's real intimidating the first time you come.
Daytona is fantastic because when you go in the bank and you feel the car, the downforce, and the speed goes up, and it's fantastic. It's amazing. Well, you have to drive to understand what you feel when you're driving.
And it just gives you sort of Days of Thunder kind of feeling, and it's you can sort of appreciate the history of the place.
Daytona to me means all the great drivers that have ever come through here. My grandfather, who won the first race at this speedway, my father, who's won here, you know, I guess 7 times. You look at A.J. Foyt, you look at Peter Gregg, you look at guys who have won the sports car race here. The old Paul Revere race they used to run here before the Firecracker 400, the old style racing and stuff. So I think it just means a lot of history, and to win here and to put your name on that trophy just means history.
Terrific to hear from some of those guys. Kyle Petty, still hard at it. Terry Borchella, Jack Baldwin. Tell us your thoughts. What does Daytona mean to you?
I've been racing here for a long time too, not as long as most of these guys, but 1983, actually 1981, I came here as a 14-year-old kid and raced go-karts. They have the World Championship, the WK Championships here for karts every year, and I just remember going 130 miles an hour as a kid, and I just fell in love with the Speedway. My dad and I used to come before that to watch the 500, and I remember my dad talking about the Speedway when they used to race over on the beach, and I actually graduated from college here, and I'd hear the cars running, and I just dream about racing professionally, and I just, I love the place. It's great.
Well, when I was a kid, I remember very clearly growing up in Tampa, my father would bring me over here, and I was begging him to bring me over here. We would camp out in turn 4 up against the fence in old Plymouth and watch the 500, and I used to look at my dad as a little kid, look at my dad and say, Dad, I'm going to race here one day. I promise you I'm going to race here one day, and that was my dream. And I still remember driving through that tunnel the very first time. It was a thrill.
You ride with the Orbit Racing GT3. Kyle Petty at the wheel, and currently that Orbit car is 5th in class, 7th overall. That's an improvement on where they were at the Rolex 24 last year. They ended up finishing 7th in class, so things are on the up and up. Chris Neville, what's happening?
Well, the team really looked like a solid contender earlier in the weekend, but they've had their share of problems. Yesterday in the daylight hours, they had 2 right rears blowing out. Another one of these Porsches with problems on the Dunlop. Back upstairs to you guys.
That's the 68. Excuse me, Chris. Yes, sorry about that. That is a massive crash. That is the 2nd Racers Group Porsche. There's been 3 here this weekend. We know that the 67 is out, and that is the 68. That is a massive crash. Whoa, Jim McCallion.
Is that who's in the car?
We are pretty sure that Jim McCallion is in the car.
All right, that is at the exit of, on the inside of the racetrack, at the exit of turn 5 on the infield. And that's
a strange spot. He must have maybe had contact.
He got off. He would typically get off on the outside and come back across. And how he got upside down, we'll have to take a look at this.
Oh gosh, he went through 1. I think he went through 1. Went through turn 1.
Okay, okay.
Wow.
And he came straight.
Again, this is the Racers Group Porsche. Jim McCallion is the driver. This is the sister car to the race leader. And that was a very fast and frightening looking crash. Jack, what?
The way that car, I mean, he's safe in there. There's a lot of bars. It's a good, secure area where he is. So, and he went through a couple of barriers, which took some of that impact away and diffuses the impact. So
you hate to speculate on any type of mechanical, but he went off awful fast. It doesn't even look like he slowed down.
The team down there looking on from the Racers Group. Let's have a look at a replay. This is in real time. Follow the group around. This is a real-time replay. Watch the right-hand side of your screen.
Whoa, boy, he just came straight across from the dog leg, wide open. It's like he went straight off, never made the left through the dog leg.
Or brakes, or you don't know.
And just, you know, he got it backwards. He got off, got backwards. When you hit the grass, I mean, all bets are off at that point. Once the four wheels are in the grass, you go in the direction the momentum is taking you at that point.
It's such a fast
no longer
part
have
of the
any
track,
control. And that is the fastest part of the infield for sure. The only.
Well, let's have a look at exactly where this is. Jack Baldwin will talk us through. We'll have a look at the track map. And Jack, if you wouldn't mind pointing out, firstly, to our viewers exactly where it is. Secondly, where what happened.
Right in here is where the car, as he came off, he came right here at this fast dog leg. He came off and came straight across here and went through this barrier right here and crashed right here. So this is where he's sitting right now.
So Jim McCallion is out of the car. That is a very positive sign. A man who plays a major role in motorsport in this country, who now runs the Toyota Grand Prix of Long Beach. Very, very busy with the Champ Car Series. Has been around a long time, and also is very involved in the race at St. Pete here in Florida, the opening round of the World Series. Let's take another look at that as Jim McCallion walks away, and is extremely fortunate to be able to walk away. We'll have a look at that again, and you get to see the full impact and just how fast Jim left the circuit. Again, as we follow the cars around, as they head away from the camera, watch to the right-hand side of your screen. You will see the Racers Group Porsche come right about now.
There he comes, sailing through, hits that guardrail. That actually helped it out a little bit. But if you notice, the car is intact. I mean, the car and where he's sitting is, see right here, right there. That's where the driver sits. And
well, the owner of all three Racers Group Porsches has got enough on his plate with leading this race, and now he's seen his second car go out. Let's hear from Kevin Buckler.
Well, Lee, I'm down here. Obviously, a lot of concern in the Racers Group pit. I mean, they were very high with the race lead, but obviously very upset about what just happened. As long as we make sure that Jim's okay. Kevin, have you heard anything from the 68 team or from Jim?
No, I just went around the corner there and I saw the car upside down, and I didn't know who was driving. I just want to make sure the driver's okay. It looks like he's climbed out and he's okay. You know, I don't know why there's a barrier there. It went in a couple of years ago. It's not a very good place for a barrier. We've said that for a long time. So.
Well, it's nice to see Jim out of the car. As far as the 66 car goes, we'll go to the high points here. You just got out of the car. Everything good?
Yeah, everything's really good. Timo's in. We're running as hard as we can go right now.
Now, you know, as far as the 68 car goes, was that the car that won Le Mans last year, or?
That was the Daytona winner from last year.
Well, very disappointing.
We're doing great, too.
Obviously very disappointing for the Racers Group team, leading overall, but you don't want to see a car go out. You certainly don't want to see it go out like that.
And, well, if Kevin can hang on and win this race, that's one thing, but it's been a very expensive weekend for him as well. 2 of the 3 Racers Group Porsches out of this Rolex 24. We're about to take a short break, but let's have a look at that replay one more time. Jim McCallion in the 68 car. Boy, the speed of that car was arrested quickly, but he is okay. Just a little after 8 here, local time at Daytona International Speedway. The Rolex 24 continues. Thank you for joining us. Lee Diffie with Jack Baldwin. Terry Borchell is in here with us as well. Brian Till and Chris Neville down in the pits. Thank you for joining us. It's been an early start to the day, but we've had a fair bit of action. Jack Baldwin, talk us through that incident we just saw with Jim McCallion and the Racers Group Porsche.
Yeah, that big crash had just happened. As he came across right here, he came straight across, and he hit this barrier right here. That barrier right there, that slowed him down, and that kept him from going across this racetrack, that's what they want to avoid right there. a car coming just like you saw right there, and he was going so fast he would have gone across the racetrack and hit this guardrail right here. So
here is a replay, another replay of the crash. Watch to the right of his screen.
As he's moving really fast, but that barrier slowed him down and kept him, and here's the other barrier, right, here's another one. That barrier gave way. It diffused the impact. That's what you want. He's intact. He's in shape right there. He's okay. He's where he's supposed to be, in his driver's seat, strapped in, Hans device, the whole thing. No problem.
The bank
Porsche,
did a fair bit too, Jack.
The bank slowed down, and it kept the car from crossing. If that car had gone without any obstruction and crossed the racetrack, it could have been a lot worse.
We are under our 10th full caution, and as you look at the leaderboard, that crash and this caution, not necessarily the crash, but the caution has helped that Ford Multimatic. It is right there now in a race for the outright lead with the Racers Group Porsche. Timo Bernhard has just taken over from Kevin Buckler. The young Brazilian Augusto Farfus is in there second in class, third overall in the Ferrari 360. Then we've got the first SRP2 car, the Nissan Lucchini, and then Ralph Kellener's in the Risi Competizione Ferrari. Dave Murray in the 83 Porsche GT3. Some problems there as they wind down into sixth. Well, let's hear from David Brabham. Chris Neville is with him. This is interesting stuff for that team, Chris.
Yeah, David Brabham just brought the 88 back into pit lane. Very smooth pit stop. David Emperingham is back in the car. David, you just had a really serious stint out there. Pushed real hard to get back on the lead lap.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a real struggle to try and catch the number 66 car. I mean, they're doing a fantastic job, the drivers, the team. And, you know, they're able to go that bit longer in fuel. So, obviously, that hurts us a little bit. We spend a little bit more time in the pits. But we're now on the lead lap, and we're right behind them. So, this is as close as we've been for a long time.
That's right. They're now within striking distance of the lead, and they haven't led since the beginning of the race yesterday. These guys have got to have an incident-free race the rest of the way through.
Now, isn't it ironic that the caution that they needed was given to them by the team that they've been chasing all night long?
Let's have a look further down the field. The Orbit Racing GT3. Leo Hendry, team principal, is now driving that car 7th overall and still sitting nicely in GT class. Rob Morgan and Charles Morgan, the leader in the GTS category. Then we go back to the 59 Porsche Fab car. They've had their fair share of problems, but they're still circulating. And we go right through to Andy Wallace in the Mosler. Brian Till.
Down here in the 43 pit, Kyle Petty just got out of the car. Big smile on your face. Obviously, you enjoy this.
I do enjoy it. I really do. I've said it ever since, you know, Roger Hawley and the guys from Orbit Racing invited me to come down here with Leo and Peter, and this year with Mark Lieb. You know, it's just always a lot of fun, and it's a great group of guys, that work on this thing. Roger's a great guy, and it's just fun. I just have a good time.
Fun out there watching the sun come up, I'm sure. How's the camp stuff going?
The camp stuff's going great. Thanks for asking. You know, we've been incredibly blessed by thousands, hundreds of thousands of fans, really. You know, we got to raise $24 million. We've raised about $13 million, and about a third of that has come from fans all over the country, and that's been phenomenal. We've been incredibly blessed. Hopefully we'll have it, it's coming up out of the ground. We'll have it up and running by January or February of next year, where kids can start coming in June or July.
Well, give the fans at home a little more detail about what it is.
Well, it's a camp. We started camp after Adam's accident. We really struggled to find something, some way to heal, really. And there's a camp real close by here called the Boggy Creek Gang Camp in Eustis, Florida, and it's part of the Paul Newman Hole in the Wall Gang group of camps. And we were fortunate to go over there and see that, and you know, it dawned on Patty and myself that it was the perfect place. And my father donated 60 or 70 acres of land. He and my mother did, and you know, it's a camp for chronically ill children. We'll see kids with HIV, with asthma, with certain forms of cancer, hemophiliacs, about 13 or 14 different disease groups. So, you know, from that perspective, this is a lot of fun, okay? But going to a camp like that and seeing these kids puts life in perspective, and we've been blessed in so many ways. We were blessed with Adam for 19 years, and hopefully we'll be blessed with a lot of other kids coming to these camps.
Well, it's great to see you guys put stuff back.
Kyle Petty, a great man and a great competitor. As we go back under green, the field file into turn 1, and that Ford Multimatic has been turned around. Oh no! Just when they got on the lead lap and were chasing for the outright lead, it has been turned around.
He was so close. He got a little tap there. I believe he pulled down in front a little early. It looked to me like he just pull down a little early, but just turn it around, go after it. That's what he needs to do. Don't stall the car. Go. That's it. Closure, get your focus, put your head down, get back in the zone, go on.
It's been a big workload for these three drivers. David Empringham, the driver there at the moment, David Brabham and Scott Maxwell. Pardon the mouth stuff there, Terry Borchella.
Boy, what a letdown. I mean, they were
right there.
They were probably going to go into the overall lead that lap. And boy, that's a tough one to swallow. I'm sure David Brabham's looking at his wrist.
Once again, it's within grasp, but it's not easy. When you think you got it, it slips out from under you.
Let's have a look at the replay.
Let's look at this. See, he came down on the Corvette.
Yeah, he came down.
He came down too early. He hadn't cleared him. So, that was a little error on David's part. Just wanted to get the car to the apex or wanted to get through the corner. Wasn't thinking about the Corvette, was focused on the 66 car.
This is the view back. Watch the two cars in view, and this will really tell the story. Perhaps Empringham thought he was further ahead of the Corvette than what he was.
I think so.
Is Empringham in the car?
Yes.
I'm sorry, I called David.
Yeah, he is David Empringham. It's early, Jack. It's a
David,
Sunday morning.
It's David, right? Okay, I got it.
Just say David. There's two of them in the car.
Okay, yeah.
The thing that's important now is that he doesn't try too hard to gain that back because, he's thinking about the team. He's thinking about his drivers lineup. He's thinking about a lot of things, and he doesn't want to push too hard to try to get that back. It'll come back to him. He's just got to be patient.
Right. What they need to do now, and I'm sure they're doing this, they'll set up a split, and they'll tell him every lap, minus so many seconds, whatever he's behind, he'll know at the rate he's good. He's picking up a draft right now. He doesn't want to fool with this Corvette. He wants to get by this Corvette. He needs to get by and clear him and get on with it. That actually helped David a little bit. He got a good draft off the car, got into turn one, and he needs to get down to business now. Well, every lap by, he'll hear a split. They'll tell him minus so many seconds to the leader, and he'll know at what rate he's catching.
Before they give him that split, though, wouldn't there have been a calm down, it's okay?
Very possibly, but I think that came back when he, okay, come on, get it going, let's get going here. Calm down, let's get focused here.
Race leader, Timo Bernard in the 66 Racers Group Porsche. It has been a cut above in the Rolex 24. It is still the car to catch.
Been doing that all.
Speed Channel's coverage of the Rolex 24 at Daytona is brought to you by Meguiar's, the trusted source in surface care service since 1901. Plenty still going on out on track here at the Rolex 24. Thank you for joining us. We're live from Daytona Beach, Florida. A race is still going on for the lead. The Multimatic Ford with David Empringham at the wheel is still trying to find his way back. Meanwhile, the Archangel SRP2 Nissan Lola has had its fair share of problems, including one massive crash last night when Larry Alberto was driving. He got turned around. Actually, he spun himself on the exit of turn one. Derek Cope, the 1990 Daytona 500 winner, is now driving this, and he's going to oversee a fairly busy schedule for Chris Bingham this year in both NASCAR Winston Cup and some bush racing. They are soldiering on, trying to slip through on the inside of the 43 Orbit Racing GT3 Porsche. And good to see so many of the SRP2 cars still out there. There's still a good fight going on.
That Nissan engine in the car is very reliable package. And I tell you what, my hat's off to the crew to stick with it and get this car back out on the racetrack.
Terry Borchella, it's at a more respectable time of the morning now, nearing 8:15 here, local time, Eastern time. There was an email that came through not so long ago. We mentioned it way back when it was still dark, but you've got a lot of fans out there. They would like to know what your racing schedule is for the rest of this year.
It looks like I'm going to run the Daytona prototype in Grand Am for the year with Forrest Barber. Bell Motorsports is going to run that car. We're also going to run a full season in the Grand Am Cup in the BMW M3 that we ran last year. And then for the American Le Mans Series, it looks like I'm going to be with Reese in the 360 and GT. And that package comes with the promise of Le Mans too, which was very appealing.
So you got a lot going on. Congratulations on that deal. It's always hard to put a deal together. Well done. Best of luck, and thank you very much for joining us here in the speed booth, and we look forward to talking lots about you this year.
My pleasure. I've got a bunch of friends that are passed out in the motor coach the crew didn't have to use because we were out so early, and I think I'm going to go get them some Dunkin' Donuts. But I appreciate you guys having me, and look forward to you guys doing the rest of the year. You've been doing a great job, and I love the Speed Channel. I love the coverage.
Thank
you. And also in the middle of all this, I guess you're going to move and be a neighbor?
We're going to be moving to Georgia probably in about a year from now, my wife and I, and we're excited about that. And I'm just real excited about what's happening with racing. I got a lot of great sponsors behind me and good people. Cannon Performance Filters, it's a family-owned business, and they've been really helpful to me. And I'm just looking forward to working with them throughout the year. And I just love being able to race. It's a dream come true.
Well, Terry, you're a great professional. We're glad to have you.
Thanks, guys.
Great stuff. Thank you, Terry Borchella, and we look forward to more from Terry throughout the year. The campfire smoke is still very evident. Plenty of hangovers out there as well. Greg Kramer's been doing some great work behind the scenes. He brings us up to date on some more here at Daytona.
It's just past two-thirds distance, and the long Daytona night is finally ending. The signs of attrition are most poignant in pit lane, where the hollowness of an effort failed is captured in the emptiness of a pit stall cleared out by a team long since departed, now occupied only by the occasional visitor. To see the bleary eyes and hunched backs of the survivors, though, one wonders if an early retirement isn't almost a better result. The number 19 ACP Motorsports Corvette is 25th overall, 6th in class, but over 100 laps back. It has been a long night, a long fight. Is this grind really worth it?
It's always fun to tell my friends that I do the 24 hours of Daytona. It's even better when I tell them I've been up on a podium before. We struggled from about halfway through the race, and we've been struggling now, and we're going to keep on struggling. We ain't going to give up. We're going to keep on trying no matter what.
So a sixth can become a fifth, and for the survivors, the focus is on the big picture. But in the end, even an effort failed is an effort attempted, and that is the very soul of endurance racing.
And that's what road racing in the USA is all about. Dad and the kids watching on, who knows, they might be future stars of sports car racing. We hope so. Stay with us here on Speed. Lots more. The race rolls on, and so too do the highlights. Some highlights from hour 19. A pretty hairy and scary moment for Ayrton Dare in the Dark Dog number 7, Saline SR7. Very lucky to avoid contact. This was a great battle here as David Brabham regained a lap and got himself back on the lead lap. Meanwhile, the 83 Renworks Porsche for Johannes van Overbeek and Dave Murray, they slid back down the order with radiator overheating problems, sadly. This was a very scary moment for the Racers Group Porsche, Jim McHalion, but this was something we were all very pleased to see Jim walking away. He is okay, just a little shaken. The Porsche in not such great shape. And we spoke earlier with the car owner and the race leader, Kevin Buckler. Let's hear from Kevin again. He's with Brian Till.
Well, Kevin Buckler, owner and driver here at Racers Group, and when you wear those hats, you got a lot to take care of, winning races, but also taking care of the other guys. Have you heard about Jim's condition?
Oh, again, we talked to the crew chief. They haven't talked to him yet. We saw him get out of the car. He looks like he's walking good. He's in really good shape, so I hope he's okay. You know, and after we're watching the tape, I have to kind of recant what I said before. I see the barrier where he ran into, and it's obviously there for a purpose. It's not the barrier I was thinking of, so it did its job and kept him out of oncoming traffic.
Well, like I said, Kevin's got a lot of hats to wear. He's got to take care of cars he got out of, take care of the drivers that he has in the other cars. Good luck.
And Jack, too, this is an emotional business. You say things sometime first without, knowing all the facts. And Kevin's had time now, because we pounced on him straight after that happened. He's had time now to look at what exactly happened. Maybe he even saw your draw through, so he's realized where exactly it was.
That's completely true, correct. I've probably done that a few times in my life. Said a few things I wish I had.
Continuing on, Timo Bernhard leads this race and leads it well to the tune of about 34 seconds. Now, here's an interesting statistic for you. We came into this Rolex 24 with 8 former winners. Of course, the legendary Hurley Haywood with 5. Hurley is still in the race in the Porsche-powered Brumos, but not in winning contention. There is only one driver there who could possibly win this race, and that was last year's winner, Max Pappas. In the Ferrari 360 GT for JMB Racing USA, he is still in contention. So we'll keep an eye on Mad Max. This is his co-driver. One of 3 co-drivers. This is Augusto Farfus. And he's doing a great job. Grinding down towards that 1 o'clock finish. There is still so much to talk about, particularly the 88 car. Chris Neville.
This team is definitely the epitome of 2 steps forward, 1 step back. The team was sniffing the lead there. Right after that caution, Scott Maxwell got turned around, and now he's about 30 seconds back. The team settled him down, said, get your head back in the game and try and catch up to Buckler. However, right after that happened, the seat adjuster broke, and now he's in the full back position. And if you look at this driver lineup, they're kind of short guys, so he's having a very difficult time reaching the pedals. These guys are going to have a hard time. They don't want to bring him in. They're telling him just to try and deal with it right now. They should probably go and see if they could recruit Boris to drive this car a little bit later.
What a tough break for this team, for that to happen. And a car that certainly was capable of catching up if just refocus, get going again. But by the lap times, they're matching the 66 lap times, so they're not gaining ground at all at this point. And the only thing they can do is stay out there and run to the pit stop, get it fixed, and then continue on. Stay on the same lap. Obviously, no more problems at this point. They're okay. They just need to get through this stint and get that seat back where they can get that car back to where he can push up the gas pedal all the way to the floor.
Still running strong and still in contention. That is the most important thing, and that is keeping the hopes of the Multimatic team alive. The SRP2 race is still on, but there's a fair amount of ground between the class leader, the Lucchini Nissan, and the Team Seattle. The racing season is back underway. That means you need to stay up to date, and you can do that with Speed News, Sunday, 7 p.m. Eastern. And this weekend, Speed News hosts Dave Despain and Rick Benjamin. Tune in for everything in the motorsports world. Get brought up to date. Sadly, there's been a harsh blow has been dealt to our SRP2 leader, the Lucchini engineering car, and it is behind the tow truck.
You know, to go all this way, if it's going to break, you always say, gee, if it's going to break, let's break early. It's tough when it breaks so late like this.
Check here, and this is where it's
boom.
Maybe ended. We don't know if it's terminal or not. However, they are in good shape for a while yet. We still have a long way to go, 4.5 hours left in this race, but they do have some 30-odd laps over the next closest SRP2 car, some 28 laps to be exact. Whoa, around goes the 09 Corvette.
No harm done.
GTS class.
Has to wait for a little traffic before he pulls out. Wants to do that safely. Have a wreck.
This is a good sight to see the 83 Porsche GT3 back on the road. Brian Till, it was tough luck for Dave Murray and the gang, but good to see them still circulating.
Well, absolutely, Lee. Lars Giersing, team manager and crew chief here. It just seemed like once it started raining, it flooded.
Yeah, we were running really good all night, second most of the night, first in the beginning. About hour 8, 9, we started developing clutch problems and tranny problems that we kind of had to baby all night. But we still kept about a lap up to the front runner. And we were running great up until now, where we caught some debris and punctured the center radiator. Put us down about 5, 6 laps. But now we're out running again. We have a good car, good team, good crew, good drivers. So we've got 4.5 hours left, and I hope we can make it up.
He's got 4.5 hours left, at which point in time he's looking to sleep. I asked him if he had slept at all last night. He said no, but at least when the sun comes out, it wakes me up a little bit. Tough down here in the pits, guys.
It's waking all of us up. Daylight is taken hold. We go on board the 59 car, the Daytona prototype, the Porsche-powered Brumos, Scott Goodyear.
And he just recently turned the fastest lap of the race, just a few laps back. So the car obviously is running well.
In the 150s, a good solid lap. 2 open wheeler stars in this car, Scott Goodyear, Scott Sharp. They've thoroughly enjoyed themselves. Newcomer J.C. France has certainly equipped himself well. And of course the legend at the helm, Hurley Haywood. He's had some moments throughout this period of racing in this Rolex 24.
Yeah, he had the big one for the team.
Yeah.
The big one, yep.
When a driver describes an incident that happened like Hurley when he ran off track to take evasion, needed to avoid that the Porsche and the Corvette, and you see it in his eyes where he said, "That was the king," and I went off there flat out.
Nobody wants to do that. You're running wide open. The road turns to the left. When you go, if you go off, you go off. If you're running, just picture going off the road, going flat out.
Speed difference here between the Daytona prototype and a Porsche GT3. High on the course and continuing on, Boris Said is here in the BMW Piccio. It looks a bit beaten and battered, but it is still running and may get on the podium in class. So good to see the BMW Piccio pushing on and pushing hard. Chris Neville.
Well, I'm down here with Bryce Cobb. And Bryce, you guys have had an extremely frustrating weekend, but you're getting ready to take over 3rd place in the Daytona prototype class. You've got to be pretty happy about that.
Well, for us, it's a culmination of about a year's experience with Piccio, a manufacturer out of Italy that we have the highest regards for, and also the heritage of G&W Motorsports and their legacy here. But there was no way that we weren't, as a team, going to finish this race. A couple of things have bit us in the backside early at the beginning of the race, set us back, stuff that we've never had difficulties with before. The team has stood up to the time and the pressure. Last night, our lap times proved it. We're here to show you we're going to get 3rd.
Well, the team changed 2 front ends, 2 radiators, 2 uprights. These guys have been working real hard this entire race, and now they're actually putting some real good times on the board, and they said they're going to start pushing the car as soon as they get 3rd place.
Well, I talked to Bryce Cobb in the garage area before the race, and, he said, Jack, look, the car's fast. Speed is not the issue here. He says time is the issue. I just need time to get my system straightened out and my car sorted. And time has been the big problem for all the prototypes, actually. And the car that's had the most time, obviously, is the Brumos cars.
Sure.
And they need more time. So, it's no secret that prototypes take about a year to get sorted. That's the rule of thumb. You start a year in advance, you build the car, and it takes a year of racing the car to get them sorted. And then they're really ready to go. Next year's 24-hour should be a great battle.
And that was the situation with the Bell Motorsports Chevy Doran when Kevin Doran said, "Hey, look, I can promise you I'll have the car ready for the race meeting. I can't guarantee you for testing."
Yes. And, if you look at the Doran car, it ran well. When it was out there, it ran really well. It looked well.
And it ran fast.
And it ran fast. I'll tell you, there's going to be some more cars. More cars are going to show up, and this is going to be real exciting.
Take a look at one of our onboard shots. This is on board now. One of the class contenders in sports racing prototype 2, the Team Seattle Essex racing cars, but it's still Bernard lasting.
Hi, I'm Boris Said, driver of the Red Bull Piccio DB2. This is a new class for Grand Am this year. They've changed the rules. They've made pretty much a spec class like Winston Cup and Trans Am, where all the cars are pretty similar. As you can see, big tires, Goodyear slicks. We've got big brakes, a lot bigger than the average street car. If you look inside, we have a 5-speed sequential gearbox, meaning it's kind of like a motorcycle. It's not gated. You just go up and back. Real easy to shift. It's got a lot of horsepower. Cars are all a little different by their engine power plants. This one's powered by the ultimate driving machine, the BMW M5 engine. 5-liter V8. There's different cars with different engines, but I'm picking this one to be the best. As you can see the back, it's got a real racing gearbox, transaxle, racing suspension, a lot of aerodynamics in these cars. For the future, Grand Am made the right decision, in my opinion. It's going to be a great class. problem is we're starting in a 24-hour race, so there's a lot of unknowns. The cars are very early in their development series, so I think for the long term they made the right choice, but it's anybody's choice in who can win this race, but we're going to give it our best shot. You know, we got a great sponsor, Red Bull. Their slogan is, it gives you wings, and we're probably going to need it to win this race.
And sadly, Boris, you're not in contention, but it's great to see you still out there. The BMW Piccio Red Bull car is some 150 laps down on our race leader, Kevin Buckler, and his 66 Racers Group machine. They are still soldiering on, just like our Brian Till.
Well, Lee, you know, when the sun came up here, a lot of the teams, they begin to see victory within their grasp, and other teams, they saw it dashed. And Tommy Johnson, spokesman for the Lucchini Nissan, you were one of those teams that thought you saw victory out there as the sun came up, but it seems to have all gone away.
Well, like I said earlier, I didn't want to even talk about it, and yeah, we had a considerable lead over the second place SR2 car, even if this was a fixable problem, which I was just radioed. It's not. It's finished. In turn one, there was a plume of smoke. The car quit, and that's it.
So from winning a class victory to a little puff of smoke, and it's all gone. The good news is that you guys did run so long that you're still 24 laps up on the next SRP2 car, and if they have problems, you could still be okay by the end of it with some type of a moral victory of having a second or third in class.
If they have problems.
Well, and isn't that what this 24-hour race is all about? If they have problems. We went from a team we thought they might win the class overall or outright to back in the garage with still several hours left. Lee?
564 laps now in the books. 561 equates to 2,000 miles. Jack Baldwin, that is testament to how strong and how well built these cars are to just flog them for 2,000 miles, and they're still going to keep going.
And just think about that. For 2,000 miles, you just drive the heck out of the car. And you're not trying to conserve anything. You know, you don't want to break the car. You don't want to overdrive it, but you certainly have to drive it fast.
And when you think about driving your street car, you know, very rarely are you at maximum throttle. Is your foot to the floor? These guys would be at what, maybe 60% of the lap, at least 50% of the lap with it flat to the floor?
Oh yeah, and it's tough. That's why Daytona is such a tough place, like no other place in the world, because you spend so much time with the car at full song. And this is the only, when you come to test for this place, the only place you can test for Daytona is Daytona.
Yeah.
Other racetracks, you can use other facilities to test and get the car ready. But for Daytona, you need Daytona. Test days at Daytona are extremely important. You need that banking.
Several battles within the GT class. There was the highly anticipated Porsche versus Ferrari battle. Well, there's also an internal Ferrari versus Ferrari battle. And at the moment, this car on screen, the 20, is winning that race. This is the team of Max Pappas, Augusto Farfus, Emmanuel Collo, and Andrea Garbinati. And when we returned to the track at 4:30 this morning Eastern, and we were brought up to date very rapidly, one of the highlights from our spotters who did remain here for the full distance throughout the night said, boy, you guys should have seen those Ferraris. The 20 and 35, the JMB Ferrari and the Risi Competizione Ferrari were going hammer and tong. And as we saw earlier with that interview with Max Pappas, he had a wry smile on his face. He said it was good. A couple of contacts, a little biff and barge, and we kept us awake through the night.
But you know, the Ferraris are not as fast as the Porsches in the same class, and their only choice is to go as hard as they can go. So in this case, these guys get in the car and it's flat out. I mean, it's an hour race. I mean, it doesn't matter. It's just we're just going to keep doing this over and over again.
But one of the great things, and not only in Grand American racing, but also in the American Le Mans Series, is to see the amount of Ferraris that are around now.
Oh yeah.
Always, it wasn't a yawn, but always there was the field. The GT class was just full of Porsches. Now at least there's some variety and there's some genuine competition.
Yes, and I look for the Ferraris to get faster and to get closer to the Porsches. And next year I would expect the battle to become much, much better between these two mates.
Creeping closer to the 9 o'clock mark. That means the countdown is really on. Just over 4 hours left at the Rolex 24 at Daytona. This is the race leading car. And talk about a perfect race, a clean race so far.
And everything is going their way up to this point. I mean, they've had one little problem with the team car, ironically, when the crash happened, the caution that they didn't need, came, which allowed the 88 car to get on the same lap. But look, what's happened here is on the restart, the 88 Multimatic Ford could not capitalize on this. So with the seat adjuster going astray and the seat going back, they can't do faster laps. So they're not gaining ground, but they are staying on the same lap, running about 40 seconds, 38 seconds behind the leader. So there's more to come in this battle.
Well, that's where the race is. It's between two. It's Porsche versus Ford, GT versus Daytona prototype. It could go all the way for another 4 hours. Stay with us here live on Speed. Speed Channel's coverage of the Rolex 24 at Daytona is brought to you by Prudential Financial, growing and protecting your wealth. We ride now with the race leading car, Timo Bernard at the wheel, and the gap is remaining consistent. Jack Baldwin at about 35, 36, even up to 38 seconds. It varies from lap to lap, but the 88 car is still in pursuit of this one.
Yes, and they're just going to have to, they're deferring this till the next stint, till the next round of pit stops when they come in, get that seat fixed, put another driver in the car, and then they can continue, the 88 car can do better laps on a restart, and things should change at that point. Unless something happens, and in this race something's always happening.
But isn't that the great thing about sports car racing? What a fascinating battle this is. You've got this nimble, this nifty little Porsche GT3 with the best that Germany can offer in the back of that thing, in that engine. It's terrific. Powerhouse. Away we go. Then you've got American legendary engine builder Robert Yates, that big Ford sitting in that in the back of that Daytona prototype. Two completely different cars, but both racing for a race win.
Yes, and what car has more tradition for endurance than the 911 Porsche? You know, I mean, go back to 1977 to Hurley's first win. It was in a 911 Carrera, and not much has changed. You look at the car, you recognize it instantly as a 911 Carrera, and that's the tradition of the car. They're absolutely fantastic automobiles on the street, on the racetrack. These cars come off a production line. They don't build them as race cars. They take them off the production line and turn them into race cars.
All right, let's check the interval between the lead car and the 88 Daytona prototype. That lead car is getting held up. It's going through the kink. And watch down here on the front straight through the tri-oval, and it's coming into the pits. There is the 88 car. Scott Maxwell is bringing that car in. Will we have a driver change? Chris Neville is down there. Chris.
Yeah, it looks like David Empringham is going to get in this car. Now, one of the concerns there with that seat pushing all the way back, they're starting to get a long brake pedal too. So they're going to take a look at the brake pads to see if they're going to change them. Initially, they thought that they would go the full 24 hours without changing the brake pads. Now, one of the problems with now looking at possibly having to change the front brake pads and doing that change is there's not much pad left. So the change is going to take a lot longer. They're going to have to push those pistons back in that caliper, and that takes longer. It's easier to do a brake pad change earlier in the race if you're only going to do one. So they're going to measure those this time. I don't know if they'll do it. It doesn't look like they're going to do it this time, but I know they definitely check those pads to see if they have to the next time out.
Now, this is going to cost the 88 car a lap. This is going to cost him a lap, at least a lap, because right now, the 66 car is coming off the banking down NASCAR 4 down into the tri-oval. So very shortly here, this car will go down one lap. Chris, you're absolutely correct about the brake change. We would typically schedule our brake change early so you could do it faster, because when the pads get worn and the pucks go all the way out, it's hard to get them in there. It's easy to foul it. It takes longer. So that's one of the chances that you take when you think that you might go all the way. If you don't go all the way, then the penalty is a longer brake change and possibly a problem.
If you've just tuned in, good morning. Thanks for joining us. The Rolex 24 here live on Speed Channel. The car in the top corner of your screen is the lead car in this race. and it has been virtually for the entire night, right throughout the night when we left you at 9 Eastern last night. Is the second place car, the 88 Daytona prototype, the Multimatic Ford-powered car, sitting in pit lane, losing time all the time.
Now, I think maybe they can handle a lap, but with the time left, I'm not sure 2 laps. 2 laps would be difficult.
Well, another curveball thrown in the 88 car. They just moved the rear deck on the car, and it looks like another throttle spring change. So that took 7 laps earlier yesterday. They might be able to get it done a little bit quicker today, but this car is definitely going to be losing some more laps now.
You know, Chris, what do you think? You think it's a vibration problem that's eating those springs up? I mean, there's a reason why they're going through throttle springs.
Yes, these guys are just shaking their heads right now. They don't know what's going on. Every time they feel like they're sniffing the lead, they get something else thrown at them. So they're just trying to keep this thing together.
And this is what you run into in the development process of a prototype car. You run into little things like this that just keep eating away. And that's why it takes a year to get these things straightened out. If you don't find this out until you get out and you drive the car 18 hours. Well, it's the return spring off the injection that controls the butterfly that controls the air going in the engine. I can't see it. It's way back up in there at the inlet, right up, way down deep in there. You know, where. Let me see if we can.
Talk us through, Jack.
It's in that throttle body. They've got to get in there. They've got to get in there, open. They've got to get in this area right here, open this thing up, and get to that spring, change it. And, you know, it's one of those things that it just takes time to do. They have no choice. They've got to do this. You can't run these cars. You got to have when you let off the throttle, it's got to let off.
Plenty of things happening on the leaderboard. There's the 88 car stuck in pit lane. They are in jeopardy of losing their second spot to the 20 Ferrari, and another car that will take advantage of someone else's misfortune is the 43 car, the Yes Network Orbit Racing Porsche GT3 with Mark Lieb, Leo Hendry, Peter Barron and Kyle Petty. Here it is. It's a little bit battle-scarred, but it is still running nicely, and they will move up a position due to that lead SRP2 car, the Lucchini Engineering SRP2, the Nissan-powered prototype. Well, it is out of the race, and the Kyle Petty Porsche will jump up into 6th overall. So they are heading in the right direction.
All the GT cars are moving to the top of the list.
It was predicted, it was expected, but there is still a prototype in it, the Daytona prototype here. They're working on the Ford, and that will get back out.
Welcome back to the Rolex 24 at Daytona, where the number 20 Ferrari, normally entering the pits much faster than what we've seen him roll in here now. A transmission problem on this car, and we've seen it throughout the night. Cars who look like they're going to be vaulted up to the front by other people's problems end up suffering their own. It looks like a transmission problem here on this number 20 Ferrari. It is a paddle shift transmission. There's a paddle on the back on the right and left side of the steering wheel that the driver squeezes to move the gear change up and down. You can see him working it now, and there's something wrong, whether it's electric or mechanical. They're not sure right now, but the car will not go in gear, and that takes the 35 Ferrari and allows him to move to 3rd overall. Lee?
It most certainly has moved to 3rd. Here we go, the Ralph Kelleners, Anthony Lazzaro and Johnny Molan entry, the Calpot Rizzi Competizione Ferrari 360 GT, and they are only 4 laps behind that 88 Daytona prototype, which still sits idle in pit lane. So these guys are charging up towards 2nd. Well, they're 2nd in GT now. They're charging towards 2nd overall.
And as equally frustrating as it is and disappointing for the 20 Ferrari and the 88 Multimatic Ford, you can't imagine what it feels like in the Kevin Butler pits, where they get this tremendous breath of fresh air and this jubilation of an excitement at the same time, this wave of nervousness that, you know, yes, we're in the lead. It's exciting, but at the same time, you know, this race is not over, and no one can show it You don't show it. You don't say it. You don't speak it. You don't talk of winning. You don't say the word. You just stay focused. And I'll tell you, inside, it's the anxiety goes through the roof.
And it's easy to say, it's probably the first thing that comes to your mind, it's easy to say that everyone else is falling around Kevin Buckler, but he's been so precise in his preparation. He's got 4 great drivers, including himself. They've put themselves in that position to be the strongest and the fastest out there, and so there's 2 sides to that argument.
That's true, and they have done everything right. They have done the things you need to do to win this race. They've earned it, they deserve it, and they might win it.
Brian Till.
You know, we were talking about the 35 car, and one of the things, you know, talk about people's fortunes and misfortunes. I was just down there talking to their crew chief, and he said, you know, with all the problems that everybody's had and all the time that we think we've been running, don't forget, the time left in this race is longer than most sprint races that we run. There are plenty of problems left for other people, and not 10 minutes after he said it did we see the 20 car come limping in without a gearbox. And don't forget, there's over 4 hours left in this race. Anything can still happen, and we've already seen one of the Porsches with a half shaft problem. He looked at me and said, could the problem happen on the 66 car? Plenty of time left.
We'll wait and see. Ralph Kellner's got a little out of shape a little while ago. You may have seen it coming into turn 1. Watch here. Jack, talk us through.
He's coming in hot. He's coming in hot. He's way to the outside. So he's got a little slide. He's got to correct it. He caught that back in. You saw those front wheels moving. And hey, pro drivers can do that. That's not a big deal, but you don't want to do that a lot.
And he is a pro driver. Ralph Kellner has been around for years. Factory driver at Le Mans. And a very, very accomplished driver. He's run off just as we're giving him a wrap. He runs off the track, so loose in turn 1, and then he ran across the grass. No damage to the car.
No damage, but that's how slick it is. I mean, obviously it's that slick. He's sliding all over the place. He doesn't want to run up. Now he stopped. I wonder what his problem could be. He could have transmission problems, absolutely.
Keep in mind, all of the Ferrari 360 GTs are operating with the paddle shift gear change system. Formula 1 style stuff.
He stopped right outside the chicane, at the exit of the chicane, on a safe, relatively safe pace. Now he's going into the corner. Everything looks fine. He drives it in, makes his downshifts, turns in, turns to the left, brings it back to the right. Tries to bring it back through the grass. Okay, no harm done. Everything's cool. He's thinking, okay, get on with it. And then pulls the car over to a stop.
Here is the Multimatic Ford. It is up and running again, exiting pit lane right now. And just as Ralph Kellner's, here he is on screen now, just as he stopped, they were honing in on that Ford-powered Daytona prototype. They'd got within 3 laps of David Brabham, Scott Maxwell, and David Epringham. And look, the Ricci Competizione team are saying, can't believe it. And Kellner's are saying, come on, I need to tow back.
Yeah, pull me, get me back as fast as you can. He's just sitting there. He wants those guys to... Yeah, and I'll tell you, you sit there and you see them coming, and they just take. You think they're just taking their sweet time, you know? It's like, golly, boys. Well, yeah, there he is, right there's your tow truck. Like, you know, and they're not in any big hurry at this time of the day. They're kind of tired, and they're like, okay, we'll get you back. You yell at us, we'll go and slow. They do a good job. The guys at this track do a good job.
Look at Rick Mayer.
Oh, disappointment. All these hours and all the hard laps. I mean, all night long, running hard. And all you can do is wait for the car to see if you can fix it.
Well, this was one of the highlights of the overnight action. 20 versus 35, the Ferrari 360 GTs. Now Kellner's is being towed back, thankfully. The team are saying, get it back here so we can deduce what the situation is in and identify what the problem is.
And at this
get
point,
you back out there.
You know, at this point, get them back and see if they can finish the race.
Brian, you have something?
Yeah, Lee, you know, we talked earlier about the 20 car just having the gearbox problems. I asked Rick, obviously very busy right now trying to get this problem sorted out. They only have neutral. Looks like it could be a gearbox problem down here, too.
Isn't that funny that it happened almost at the same time?
Almost. Identical, within a lap or two.
Exactly.
Beautiful day here at Daytona Beach, but it is not going so beautifully for Racers Competizione. It is going just to plan for Timo Bernhard and the Racers Group Porsche, still leading the way. You're live at the Rolex 24 at Daytona. Thank you for joining us here on Speed, and the countdown is on. Less than 4 hours. Lee Diffie with Jack Baldwin here in the Speed booth. Down on the ground, it's Chris Neville and Brian Till. Brian, a question for you just quickly. I know that you're down there at that Racers Competizione pit. Speaking of this 35 car and the gearbox problems, and just like the 20 car, we know that all the Ferraris are operating off the paddle shift now. Johnny Molan was mentioning something to me the other day about the paddle shift system, and you might be able to elaborate on it. It sounds all flash and fancy that it's a Formula One style paddle shift, but there are some downsides to it.
Well, absolutely, Lee, and what they were just saying was that, you know, racing is a form of development for these manufacturers, and the gearbox that's actually in these Ferraris is a street gearbox. It's all electronically controlled up front, but it is a mechanical linkage in the back. And what happens is, much like your computer at home when you get frustrated and it locks up from time to time, lugging these cars around in fifth gear on some of these pace laps or behind the yellow seems to confuse the computer. And occasionally, it'll just kind of check out on you. When you do, you've got to stop, turn the car off, and let it sit off for about 30 seconds so that the computer will recycle itself. Then you can start the car and take back off. They thought it would be a better idea to run the gearbox like that here because it's easier on it mechanically when it shifts. What no one anticipated was the problems with the computer side of it.
And that's the decision you make. Do you go with the new technology, the new, faster, better mousetrap, you know, or do you go with the good old basic conventional? But at some point, you know, you have to look forward and say, we've got to develop this piece. And once again, you got to run a race like this to get things developed to find out if it will last. The manufacturers want this.
It'd be interesting to ask someone like Rick Mayer or someone from the team, because allegedly it wasn't saving them or giving them any time, the paddle shift. It wasn't light years ahead, faster or slower. So,
but it comes with the car. When these cars are built, Ferrari builds them. They put the paddle shift. You don't go in there and start tearing that stuff up.
Well, here we go. The 35 is in. Ralph Kellners is coming onto pit road. It's been an eventful time. They are still within 4-5 laps of the Multimatic Ford Daytona prototype. So you've got Porsche, Ford, Ferrari in the top three. That's what the Rolex Sports Car Series is all about. Manufacturer, car diversity, driver diversity. And it's the German Ralph Kellners bringing it in. Brian Till.
Well, he brings it in, it brings it to a stop. You'll notice there's a lot of grass on the front end of this car from his off-road excursion. Both of them, actually, they'll have to remove some of that. If it gets up in the radiators, the car could easily overheat. Kellners will stay in the car. They're going to do 4 tires, obviously, and fuel. Gave him a new drink bottle, and they're trying to blow some of this air off the front of the car. You can only have 4 workers over the wall at any one time, and the 3 guys doing the tires and the 1 guy doing the fuel, taking care of that. As soon as I'm sure they've got the tires on, they'll pull grass out of the radiators, and he'll be down and away. He gets a sip, throws his drink bottle out, and he'll sit and wait patiently, and hopefully that computer that controls the transmission, it'll behave.
Well, there's a challenge for third outright and second in GT class, because Dave Murray at the wheel of the 83 Renworth Porsche GT3 while the Ferrari team clear the front of that 360 GT. The race is really on for third as Murray comes up on the back of the 59 Brumos Porsche, the Daytona prototype. The race is really on, and what a comeback from the 83 car.
Oh, yes, and what are problems for some are prizes for others. And after the problem with the 83 car in the pits with the radiator change, installed it. Now they got to reset it. They got to wait. Takes them a few minutes. Remember, they said you have to wait. Go back and wait. Reset. There you go. Nope. Still didn't start.
And it's not like Ralph Kellners is doing this. He is very experienced in this car.
Well, and they're telling him what to do. I mean, they're giving him perfect instructions. You know, he's right there.
By the way, it's not, apparently, the drivers were telling me, it is not the easiest thing to get off the line and to get going.
Well, he obviously can't get it in gear or something. Meanwhile, the 83 car's on the banking, coming around, going to pick up a lap at this point. He can't get out fast enough at this point. He needs to be left now. So
Here comes Dave Murray.
Here comes David down through the tri-oval. You see him in the little screen there. Here he comes down through the tri-oval, and that puts him on the same lap. Now, believe me, the boys in David Murray's pits are sitting there watching that Ferrari and just hoping it sits there for a while. And the guys in the Ferrari pits are, believe me, they notice David going by, and it just makes them sick.
Now the Ferrari 360 finally gets going.
Now, here's the thing. Kellner if he can get it going, it's like go get Murray.
Yes.
Go get him. He's got fresh tires, fresh fuel. Hopefully the car's okay. Hopefully it'll give him a good run, and he's going to go out there and see what he can do.
Well, the 59 Daytona prototype, there were high hopes for Hurley Haywood to get his 6th victory. It won't happen. Here's another legendary driver, Scott Goodyear. We'll talk to him shortly. They were one of the big talking points earlier. The big talking point now is this GT class battle, and up at the top of the field for the final spot on the podium as well, the battle between the two Ferraris. Let's go down pit side now. Johnny Molan from the Ricci Competizione team is with Brian.
There's probably nobody better to explain to us how this gearbox works, because there's a lot of conjecture here. And Johnny, I know that you struggled with it too a little bit, and sometimes computers are great when they work, but it seems to be causing a problem for you guys right now.
I mean, yeah, when it works, it's fantastic. It's so easy to drive, but Ralph, right from the very beginning, couldn't shift up from second at the very start of the race, and you have to come to almost a halt so that you can go for neutral, which you get by pulling both paddles, and then go through the gears again, and then it'll start working again. And then I had a problem where it wouldn't go down a gear on me, and I spun, and then I went down. You have to cycle the ignition, pull both levers to get neutral. It's like really weird. Start the engine again, and then I went pulled first, and it stalled on me, which it should never do because it's like a semi-automatic gearbox. So I had to put my foot on the brake, because you can't select a gear unless your foot's on the brake. So you have to put your left foot on get the revs up really high, and then pull it to get first, and then it went, and I sort of spun the car around, and I managed to get off. But it's obviously something fundamentally wrong with it, and I don't know whether it will last or not. I hope so.
So it's all, as you were saying, fly-by-wire. It's all electronic back to the back where the gear change actually happens. And how many years of university do you have to go to understand how to work this box?
Sorry, say that again?
How many years of the university do you have to go to understand how to work this thing?
Well, obviously about 10, and I haven't had any, so I'm at a loss. But then Ralph's been driving it for a year, and it's the same. I mean, there's nothing you can do. All you can do is cycle the master switch and the ignition, and turn the ASR off. You've got a little ASR, you've got to flick that switch as well. It is quite complicated, but when it's working, it's great. I just hope it lasts, you know.
It's like your computer at home, like we said. When it all goes bad and you can't get it to do anything, just turn it off and turn it back on 30 seconds later.
Computer. Thanks.
Okay, did everybody get that? It's going to be a pop quiz in 5 minutes. He lost me right away. It's like, hey, can I just kick it neutral? Fire it up?
Well, fortunately for those guys, they are still in third, and this is the car that is hunting them down. David Murray from Georgia is pushing as hard as he possibly can.
They have had one tough 24-hour, actually, not just the night, but they've been running hard all the time. Hey, my hat's off to these guys. These guys have done a great job. You know, if you look at all the cars and you look at, to almost throw out lap times and say, okay, who spent the least amount of time? Just focus on the pits, all right? Let's just add up pit time. Easily 66, and that's why they're leading this race. And you know, as many years as I've been coming here, every year I come, that's what they always say. The guy who spends the least time in the pits is going to win. And the average lap time, when you look at it after the fact, is usually very, very slow when you average it all out. And it's the guy who spends the least time in the pits. Interesting. And most people focus on going fast and this, staying out of trouble. It's staying out of the pits is what it is.
Credit too to the other drivers in this car, because they've certainly held their end of the deal. That's Richard Storanka of Los Gatos, California, and also Dave Standridge. They have done their work. We've spoken a lot about Johannes van Overbeek and David Murray. Of course, they're more well-known drivers and more accomplished drivers, but the other two guys, the other two Californians, have certainly done a great job. It's fourth overall for these guys. It's a GT car still leading the way, a Daytona prototype second. Leading the GTS class is still the Morgan Dollar Motorsport Corvette. However, trouble on pit lane with the steering rack.
And they're having to change the steering rack. They've lost the power steering or lost the rack. Blowing fluid all over, I would suspect.
Chris Neville, can you tell us more?
Well, these guys were definitely leading their class pretty handily, but now they're looking at a steering rack change here, and that's going to take about 5 minutes. They're going to go down a couple laps. I don't think that's going to put this down in their class, but these guys definitely had a very good good lead, and if they didn't have those problems yesterday with the Daytona prototype, they probably would have been much further up for overall, too.
Well, second in GTS is the Mosler MT900R with Jerome Pollock and Andy Wallace, the multiple-time winner of this race, three-time winner of this race, and Michael Newgarden. And they're within 6 laps of this car here, so depending on how long this steering rack change takes, we could have a battle on our hands in the GTS class.
All over the side of that car trying to close that gap between
the Morgan team working as hard as they can. That 46 machine, Charles and Rob Morgan, Lance Norris, the NASCAR Craftsman truck driver, and the 1996 winner, Jim Pace. The foursome that make up that. Thanks for watching Speed. Stay with us. We've got plenty more coming from the Rolex 24. Rolex 24 at Daytona is brought to you by Hooters. Delightfully tacky, yet unrefined. Time to give you an update on how this field looks right now. Nothing has changed up front, and that is that this car is still so dominant, still in great shape. It is untouched, undamaged, and very, very fast. That is the 66 Racers Group Porsche GT3. Kevin Buckler, Michael Schromm, Jörg Bergmeister, and Timo Bernard. The Daytona prototype, the highest Daytona prototype, David Empringham, Scott Maxwell, and David Brabham running second. Then we've got that the Kelleners, Molam, Lazzaro, GT, 360 Ferrari. Then the 83 Porsche. It's just pitted after doing such good work to gain on and make the most of the Ferrari's problems. Still sitting third in class, fourth outright. Then the other Ferrari, the JMB Racing USA Ferrari with Augusto Farfus and Max Pappas and co. Back to the Orbit Racing Porsche. Peter Barron, that's the Kyle Petty car. We look 7 back through 12. Lead GTS car and also lead sports racing prototype 2 car with Mirko Savoldi. He was driving the Nissan Lucchini when it stopped. They're out and they're literally just running out of laps until the other sports racing prototypes catch them, and that will be the Team Seattle Essex Racing cars. There's only a 3-lap gap, so they will be overtaken before this race is done. Looking back, 13 through 18. And if you look to the bottom there, sadly, a well-known motorsports figure in this country, Jim McCaleen, is out of the race. It was a scary-looking crash, Jack Baldwin, but from all accounts, Jim is okay, and he did walk away from the accident.
Yeah, and the Porsche did exactly what it was supposed to do in that area in there with the driver sits and all the safety equipment. That's why we wear it. The Hans device did its job. He got out and walked away.
A little further up in 16, Jean-Francois Avant in the Saline, still going on. We look further back at some of the guys that have experienced a lot more problems. That's right. The Russians no longer in the race, but it was great to have them here. A true international lineup. 2 Russians, an Austrian and a Japanese driver in that Porsche 996 in the GTS category. This one down in 36. Larry Schumacher, Lucas Luer, Sasha Masson. An unbelievable team, but they just churned through tires, didn't they?
The right rear had a tire issue that just, they kept throwing right rear tires at it and finally had to just, for a safety reason, and I think they did the right thing.
Yep. Only 44 cars started this race. It wasn't as well attended as in previous years with the new rules and regulations, but it will grow again, it will get stronger again, and the attrition rate has not been as high as in previous years. We battle on, we grind on, we're getting closer to the checkered flag. Stay with us. Hour 20 highlights of the Rolex 24. Scott Maxwell at the restart pounced, but closed in and turned down too early on the Flip Motorsports Corvette. It was costly, it turned him round, and he reflected on what may have been, but it's not over yet, Scott. Hang in there. The Archangel SRP2 had some problems. And speaking of SRP2, the Lucchini Engineering entry, which was the lead car by a substantial margin, expired. Day over, game over. Game over not yet for the 88 car, but they have had their fair share of problems. Some throttle spring problems delayed them, it cost them time, and they lost laps, but not as many as this car. The number 20 JMB Racing USA Ferrari with Augusto Farfus there. They've experienced a lot of gearbox problems. Right here on Speed, NASCAR Inside Winston Cup, live from Daytona, Monday, February 10th at 7 p.m. Eastern. Hope you can tune in for that. Lots coming up here on Speed. We ride now with that Orbit Racing 43 Porsche GT3. Look at what a beautiful day it is here at Daytona Beach. We're expecting temperatures at around the 70-degree mark. It should be fantastic and a picture-perfect finish here at 1 p.m. local. We will be with you live right through until 1:30 local here on Speed Channel. Let's hope this car can see it all the way through to the finish. Kyle Petty's third appearance here with this team at the Rolex 24.
You know, after 20 hours of running, and a nice morning like this, it is nice to be running. It really is. It always feels good.
The 35 Ferrari still hanging on to third overall. Second in GT class, of course, the 66 car, the Racers Group Porsche, is leading the way. Ralph Kellner is still behind the wheel here. We heard from Johnny Molam a few moments ago about the trials and tribulations of this paddle shift gearbox setup, and it has been a little costly for them. But credit to the team and the car, as far as the engine is concerned, it is still running strong.
And at this point, it looks like it's holding its position. The Overbeck 83 911 Porsche is not really gaining ground.
It's lurking a couple of laps behind, but these guys are doing well. Now, someone who was hoping for a three-peat in terms of wins here, every time he's raced here, he's won his class. Anthony Lazzaro is down in pit lane with Brian Till.
Well, Anthony came here looking for the hat trick, obviously, but you guys have had your problems, but it seems like you get knocked down, you kind of claw your way back. Where's it going?
I wish it'd go into victory lane, but if we can get an overall podium, that'll be good, you know. It's certainly, I mean, from the start of the race, it kind of set the tone, didn't it? I mean, we had problems right away, and we rebounded. These guys behind me are unbelievable. I mean, Giuseppe Ricci has assembled a top-class crew, and, man, if we can just keep the thing running, you know, Ferraris haven't done many 24-hour races with the 360, although they have a great history here, and I got to do something good. My wife and my family woke up at 6 a.m. to watch you guys and watch me, so hopefully we can pull something off here.
Gearbox issues. I mean, it seems that, you know, it's great when it works, but we've seen everyone have problems. Did you have problems with it also?
No. Not at all. I'm the only driver so far not having any problems, but it was one of our concerns coming in. We've been running the car with the standard shift, and that's what we did with the test here, but the standard shift had never gone 24 hours. The paddle had. But the paddle's filled with a lot of electronics, and, you know, I like to have control of the stick. So Ferrari's actually doing a good gearbox for us. It'll be ready after Sebring. Look forward to that. The paddle is nice in an endurance race because it's easy to do, but I like having that control.
He likes to have control. Imagine that from a race car driver, guys.
From one Ferrari to another, we know that the number 20 machine has gone behind the pit wall. This is the Max Pappas, Augusto Farfus, Emmanuel Pollard entry, and they are not giving up, although they are losing laps a long way. We're still looking at the 35 one, the Ricci car, and Ralph Kellner's, the very, very experienced German sports car driver. We go behind the wall now, and look at that, a big crowd looking on at this beautiful piece of machinery, but it is going nowhere.
You know, and at this stage of the game, what the crew wants to do very desperately is finish this race on the racetrack.
Chris, the team would be desperately disappointed. What else is happening down there?
Well, like the 35 car, they are having transmission problems. However, resetting the computer did not fix the problem. It is electrical. They don't know what the problem is, so right now they're searching everything electrical on the car, trying to figure what's up, but electrical problems can take forever.
Nice shot of pit lane there in the overview.
And that's so disappointing and frustrating for the crew because after all this time and work, their prize would be, hey, at least the car finished. We kept at it, and the car didn't beat us. We beat the car. And that's why they don't give up.
Well, they're not about to give up. Driver's still in car, and
no, he's ready to
nowhere.
Go. He's just waiting for it to fix it. He wants to go out there.
They want to finish it just like the Brumos Porsche team does as well. Hurley Haywood, Scott Sharp, Scott Goodyear, and J.C. France are the driver lineup for this car, and they have not given up. They've suffered quite a bit of adversity throughout the 20-plus hours of this race. This guy has been electric. Scott Sharp, boy, he's been blindingly fast in this Porsche-powered Fab car. And we look forward to seeing more of Hurley Haywood throughout the Rolex Sports Car Series in 2003. Bob Varsha, David Hobbs will be with you after the break. Calvin Fish and Guy Hobbs in the pits. Enjoy the Rolex 24.
Come crashing down every time we go this far again. We come tumbling down every time we go this far again. Every time we go.
It's been that kind of a race. Welcome back to our live Speed Channel coverage of the 41st running of the Rolex 24 at Daytona. I'm Bob Varsha, along with David Hobbs. Calvin Fish and Guy Hobbs are patrolling the pits. Our thanks to Lee Diffie, Jack Baldwin, Chris Neville, and Brian Till for their good work this morning. Good morning, everyone. It's about 9:35 local time here at Daytona International Speedway on a beautiful North Florida morning. Not so beautiful, perhaps, if you were one of the 44 cars that started the race and are among the 22 cars that are now officially out of the 41st running of this 24-hour marathon. Several cars are behind the wall being worked on. They may get back in the race before too long, but at this point in time, we have history in the making with a GT class Porsche 911 looking for that fabled brand's 20th overall victory here at Daytona. Let's get down to the pit lane now and say good morning to Calvin Fish.
Well, morning, Bob, and I certainly want to thank Chris Neville and Brian Till for taking the early shift. Their sun is up. Guy and I are back on form now, and I think the thing that we need to point out right now, there's a battle for overall victory between the GT class and the Daytona prototype, the Multimatic car, going up against our Racers Porsche. But that really claims some bragging rights for the tire companies as well. Remember that the Daytona prototype, the GTS, went on Goodyear's, GT, and the SRP2's on Dunlop. So it's a Dunlop versus Goodyear battle here today, and certainly either one of those tire companies would love to be in victory lane for that overall victory today. Let's go down to Guy Hobbs.
Well, thanks, Calvin, and yeah, I certainly appreciate the work Brian and Chris did earlier this morning. You see, I'm just hanging out here at the Racers Group with Kevin Buckler in the background, watching calmly as they continue to lead here with that Porsche power, those Dunlop tires. It's going to be interesting to see how it all unfolds here. It's a beautiful day. It's about 3 hours to go, or 3.5 hours to go, so it's going to be an interesting little run on pit lane here. Bob?
That it will. Guy, thank you. David, we talked at the beginning of the show about the rules changes, the efforts to make the racing closer. At the 12-hour mark of this race last year, the gap between first and second was 8 laps. Excuse me. Last night, at the 12-hour mark of this race, there were 8 cars in those 8 laps, and the 2 leading cars were together on the lead lap. So the early returns are there has been closer racing.
And 4 of those cars were GT cars, which we suspected going into this race that a GT car might well win the race this year. Now, as Guy just said, there are 3.5 hours to go yet, and there's no doubt about it. A lot could happen in those 3.5 hours. The Daytona prototype is lurking only just 5 laps behind. So they're running pretty well. And Hurley Haywood, you can't count him out. He's not that far down. All it needs is one long stop for the 66 car, and the whole thing could change for them horribly.
That 66 car has led since basically about 12:47 p.m. last evening. Kevin Buckler and his crew have done a great job. Young German Jörg Bergmeister behind the wheel right now. The car behind it is an interesting story, too. It's the number 24 Mosler, Corvette-based, road-going supercar in racing trim, the MT900R. And these guys have had an interesting race as well. Jérôme Poliquin of France behind the wheel. Andy Wallace on the strength of this team. Our colleague Lee Diffie tipped these guys to be potential winners of this race. He is a great admirer of Andy Wallace, as are we all. And this team has done a great job.
Hard not to admire Andy Wallace when you look at his long-distance record. Sebring, Le Mans, very first trip to Le Mans, here a couple of times. And he picked that car because he just thought that a GTS car, certainly at this early stage of the season with the new rules, could easily be a winner. And they were running right up there in the top 4 when they had a gearbox problem.
Frenchman Poliquin behind the controls. Andy Wallace, of course, from Oxford in England. João Barbosa of Portugal, and Michel Newgarden, Monte Carlo, also on the driving strength of that car. A number of Moslers in the race this year. And at 24, running 10th overall, is second in the GTS class. Now here's a gaggle of cars. There's the 34 Ferrari 360 GT, followed by a Marcos Mentis, a wild supercar. Just one example in this race. They've had a very difficult weekend thus far. A lot of blown tires, a lot of off-track excursions, but they are still out there buzzing around here in the 21st hour of this race.
Well, there's only 160 laps down, so I suppose there's still hope they can turn this into a 84-hour race.
Well, that parity we talked about just a moment ago is what works against you at this point. You get a couple of laps behind when everybody is lapping within a few seconds of one another. You just cannot make it up.
With one of the old prototypes, you could be 10 laps down and 4 hours to go, and you'd be 10 seconds a lap quicker.
There you see the 03 unusual car, Cor Euser. This guy has been racing everything there is to race in sports cars for so long.
And a very accomplished driver, and of course they did very well in the European Championship last year with the Marcos brand. And the Marcos, of course, is a very interesting, I don't know, history to it. When I was racing back in the very early 60s, a guy called Jamie Marcos came along with a wooden car. It was built of wood. And Jackie Oliver, who most people know as a Formula One driver and of course the owner of the Arrows Formula One team ultimately, crashed in it, and one day all that was left was him sitting in a seat surrounded by a bunch of matchsticks.
This is down in the turn 1 area, local yellow. There could have been contact with the 43 Porsche 911. That's the Orbit car. Heavy right front damage.
Is that Kyle? No, it's not Kyle driving.
Peter Barron from Fort Lauderdale. Remember the start of this race, the car was quality.
It's a very bad spot there, just on the exit.
Okay, full course.
Turn 1.
Yeah.
And he's obviously stuck there well and truly.
Full course, our 11th full course caution. Tom Herridge, the United Kingdom, behind the wheel of that GTS class Marcos, sharing with John Burton, Martin Short, and Canadian David Sheff. Contact with the 30, we are told, from the Central Florida Region SCCA corner workers.
Well, it seems to go underway now, so they pull the full course caution, which they probably won't need.
Let's take another look. Picking up at start finish on board the 43. Watch just ahead.
I'm afraid Mr. Herridge there trying to shut the barn door way too late. The Petty car, the Orbit car, was well inside in there, under braking. It stayed wide and then tried to close the door, but of course it was all too late.
One more look from the outside now.
See, look at this. Just cut right across.
Well, that's an example of what happened on an early restart this morning when the 88 Multimatic Daytona prototype in the hands of Scott Maxwell, having made up a lap and was ready to charge the 66 for the lead, Maxwell got a little over-aggressive, did exactly that same move, cut down on another car, spun himself out, and dropped themselves back. Looks like that nose might be dragging a little bit on Barron's car. Calvin, what's up with the 24?
They just did a routine stop here. Jerome Poliquin staying in behind the wheel, and I just spoke to Randy Wallace. I said, how are things going? He said, the car's really running like a train right now. We had a big gearbox problem. I had to change that during the night. That's a lengthy stop on one of these Moslers. But there's only 3 laps between him and the 46 car, so they're back in the hunt for GTS honors. I said, how's the handling? He said, well, it's a little loose on the oval. And I said, as it heats up, he said, well, it's going to get worse. So we've got a long day ahead of us, even though there's just over 4 hours to run. Andy Wallace and that team are going to be trying to hang on for victory here today.
Running like a train. That's a good cliche. I guess it depends on where in the world your trains come from. Japan, France, that's okay.
It's running like a French train, that's good. Running like a British train, that's too good. But that 43 car, unfortunately, came off very much the worst in that incident, and it really wasn't his fault at all. I mean, he had tons of room, went inside as he was legitimately allowed to do, and The 30 car pulled way down and then pinched him badly. Unfortunately, the 43 car looks like he paid the penalty.
This team came in with such high hopes. They were the two fastest cars in the early January tests. But it just hasn't gone their way here in the race. Calvin Fish awaits the 43.
Well, the 43 car comes in, I believe, as Peter Barron behind the wheel. He's struggling to stop it there as if he's got some kind of brake problem as well. So, right front there, you see a lot of damage, torn up the bodywork. Headlight is out, but that's really not a problem now in the daylight hours. But when they get this wheel off, it'll be interesting to see if he has torn a brake line or something, or whether the hub is... Oh, you can see there, the rotor is completely gone. All is left there is the bell. That's why the team had to stop the car as Peter Barron hit his marks here. So this is dramatic stuff. I didn't see the incident on a screen, so I'm not sure whether that was caused by the contact with the 30 machine, but that may have created the problem as Peter was down the inside. If he did lose the brakes, that may have caused the contact in the first place.
The rotor, of course.
The rotor should go about where that mark is. Obviously, should go into the caliper, which is here. The rotor would go in between the caliper there. So it's just completely come off. It certainly looks like it maybe came off first. And maybe he just ran out of brakes at a crucial moment there.
Right, these screws around the outside hold the rotor to the hub, and it is completely gone. There's the 30 in the pits. Go, Calvin.
Well, we're down here. We're going to try and get a quick word with Peter. I don't want to get in the way of the service that's going on the car. I'm going to come in the other side of the cockpit. Peter, what happened? Did you lose the brakes before the contact?
Well, you know, this time of day, we were just kind of trying to catch up. We were running fifth overall, and I could have swore the guy was giving me the turn. It looked like he was giving the last second, turned in. I got on the brakes, and one of those incidents.
The rotor is completely gone here on the right front corner. Was it the contact that caused that to fall off, essentially?
Yeah, that was 100%. The car was working just fine up until that. We're having no problems. The brakes were strong. And whatever he did with the hit shattered the rotor there.
Okay, Peter, thanks a lot, mate. And you can see it's going to be a lengthy stop here. A lot of damage on this right front corner. And they were really clawing their way back into this GT battle here today. And still with an outside shot at victory overall. So this is a very costly hit for the 43 machine in the Orbit Racing car.
But they are about 8 laps up on the Hayward Daytona prototype behind them. So if they can get this done in 8 laps, they'll still be able to hold on to their 5th spot.
We are rolling along about 2,500 miles into the 41st chapter in the saga of the Rolex 24. Stay with us. If you missed any of the action in our 16 hours of live Speed Channel coverage of the 41st Rolex 24 at Daytona, be sure to check out our highlighted version Monday, February 24th at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, only on Speed. Little under 3¼ hours to go. This Rolex 24, and there have been plenty of highlights. One you will certainly see in our highlighted show in February was Jim McCalion's backward crash into the infield Armco, a protective fence set up to do exactly this, keep a car from going straight across the infield and getting onto the racetrack on the far side. A huge impact. Fortunately, McCalion, who lives in Long Beach, California, and is the president of the Grand Prix Association of Long Beach, appears to be okay. He's with Calvin.
Jim, as your first opportunity to see the replay there, what actually happened there going through the kink?
Well, I just started into the kink, and somebody came up behind me and hit me in the rear. And as you well know, that's a very susceptible point in there. And once you commit to that, when you get hit, there's no way to catch it. It just sends you spinning. And it really irritates me because there's so few cars out here now. When we were doing really well, our team was really running strong. The Hessert family and R.J. Valentine and myself, and we were climbing up the charts, and we had a good chance for a top 10 finish and a good finish in class too. And there's absolutely no reason for that. And it really irritates me that happened.
That's a wild ride because when you go off at that point, I had a wheel brake there once in testing. You don't know when you're going to stop, and you know you're going to meet the track at another point with cars out there.
Yeah, and there's nothing you can do about it. You're completely in the hands of the gods right there. So the crash is going to be big, and there's so little you can do to try to avoid it.
We're seeing the replay here once again, Jim, and you went through there and got dug in, went up on its roof. At that stage, most of the energy had really dissipated, fortunately. So how are you feeling? Are you sore right now?
Yeah, I'm a little sore in the back, but I'm going to be all right. I'm more irritated than I am hurt right now.
All right, mate. We're glad you're okay. It was a wild ride, and we look forward to seeing you in St. Pete for the first Champ Car race in a couple of weeks.
Thanks. See you, Kevin.
That's right, Jim McCallion, not only president of the Grand Prix Association of Long Beach, but an executive with Dover Downs Entertainment. He'll be presiding over the opening round of the Champ Car season. The Bridgestone presents the Champ Car World Series powered by Ford, February 22nd and 23rd, down in St. Petersburg. Wait till you see that racetrack here on Speed. On board with David Gaylord, now in 10th place in the SRP2 category. And this team is doing some good work on the racetrack. They're also doing some great work off of it. For more on that, here's Guy Hobbs.
Yeah, they certainly are, Bob, and it's for the 7th year that they're doing it. Originally, the plan was to do it for 1 year, but Don Ketch, this Team Seattle Racing for Children, turned out to be a huge charity and a great money raiser.
It's been a ton of fun, Guy. This is our 7th year down here representing the most beautiful city in the nation, Seattle, and making money for the finest pediatric health care provider in this nation, our wonderful Children's Hospital. We want to thank everybody back in Seattle that got behind this effort and has for the last 7 years. Nickels, dimes, quarters, dollars in pledges per lap completed, and every dime of that money goes directly to the hospital. Couldn't have done it without Speed Vision, couldn't have done it without Grand Am and Daytona Speedway.
1.2 million over the last 7 years, and today's total we're running at, as of 9 o'clock this morning, $100,000.
$100,000. We've lapped down here as high as $458 a lap, but you know, right now times are tough. But to be down here at $188 a lap, come home with $150,000 for the kids, hey, we're elated. To say nothing of the fact that right now we're leading class and we're 9th and 10th overall. Thank you, everybody back in Seattle, for all your support for the last 7 years. And thank you, Speed.
All right, thank you, Don. Keep that total going up. We've got another bunch of laps to run off yet, so let's go down to Calvin.
Well, the 24 car is in. Andy Wallace told me this thing was running like a train. I think it's running on steam right now. High water temperatures have really created a lot of problems here. The car's in. They're trying to get some water into the system. And as they work on their car, pit lane is really like a graveyard right now. The 43 car, the Orbit team, are still working on that right front corner. They're trying to get a brand new caliper on there. A lot of damage to this front end with a massive hit there with a 30 machine, I think it was, out on course. So they got all hands on deck here. Some radiator damage as well. They're having to change one of the radiators on the front end, of course, and also get that right front corner on. So this looks like a lengthy stop, and it's really going to take them out of the running. Driver change has been made. I think it's Kyle Petty back behind the wheel, taking over from Peter Barron.
Calvin, just leave the corn to me. You're way too young to do that.
Now there's the 88 Multimatic Ford that was up as high as second just a couple of hours ago. They now have one lengthy pit stop. They are now 6 laps behind the race-leading 66 Porsche, and it appears they may be having some further problems, we are told, although this looks like a fairly standard stop.
They had trouble with their throttle springs, which unfortunately are very difficult to get to, as Jack Baldwin explained so cogently earlier on, and they have to take a lot of stuff off to get to the throttle spring, and it's one of those things that's nice to have as a good throttle return spring when you're doing 150 of that kink Jim McCallion came to grief at.
Tough to get your toe under that accelerator and
yeah,
back up.
Put your foot on the floor outside the door. It's just not quite the same as having the throttle spring there.
As I said last night during our coverage, as these Daytona prototype designs mature, those are the kinds of things they will fix. They'll get critical components in a place where the mechanics can get at them more easily. Calvin.
Well, we're down here in the pit box, actually. David Bradford's getting tucked in there behind the wheel. Looks like pretty routine stuff. We're going to try and get David Empringham out here. And when you talk about the drivers on this team, a lot of people know the name of David Bradford, but if you go back a few words, Emp here, he's won 2 Atlantic Championships, won an Indy license. So this is a strong driver lineup, David. How is the car now?
Well, we've had a tremendous run, and the car was working flawlessly in the night, but somehow with the hot weather, it doesn't seem to handle as well, so we're struggling a little bit. We're going to chip away at it.
I know the car's been loose since you got this car on track a couple of months ago, and you've been working hard changing the roll center suspension settings. You've got a great group of guys back here. It must be a real privilege to be part of this Multimatic crew.
Yeah, I feel real fortunate to be part of the Multimatic crew and a great group of drivers. We have a lot of fun, and that's a big part of it. And I just, we were fighting a loose condition for most of the week, but last night the car was beautiful, and we were hoping it was going to transfer into the heat of the day, but it doesn't seem to be.
When you're down 5 or 6 laps like you are right now to the overall leader in the race, the GT66 car,
what do you do? I mean, you can't, there's not enough laps left, even though we've got 4 hours to go. I mean, even a couple of seconds a lap doesn't do it for you. So do you change your game plan at all? Do you go into conservative mode just to make sure you're there at the finish?
Yeah, absolutely. We're not taking any chances. You know, you don't want to spin. We just need to circulate for the next 4 hours and see if someone has a problem.
All right, David, it's great to see you back behind the wheel. This guy likes Daytona. He'd been out of the car for about 2 or 3 years, came back last year in the Grand Am Cup, won the championship, won here at Daytona in the first race of the year and the finale. This boy knows how to win.
He is a terrific driver. David, you and I called a couple of his Toyota Atlantic Championships, one of which was won against the combined might of Forsythe Racing and a driver by the name of Jacques Villeneuve.
Absolutely. David Embringham, a great driver, and his Toyota Atlantic Championships never parlayed into what they really should have done for his career, and he's been a bit of a lost cause for some time, but obviously enjoying his run here today. And when also a diplomat, somebody might have some trouble. Somebody, i.e. Buckler.
Kyle Petty behind the wheel of the 43. We'll be back live in a moment. Speed Channel's coverage of the Rolex 24 at Daytona is brought to you by Cadillac. Old vehicles defying convention. Lovely calm waters of Lake Lloyd, a man-made lake that was dug to create the aggregate that was used to build the 31-degree banking of the turns here at Daytona International Speedways. We welcome you back live to our Speed Channel coverage. Bob Barsha and David Hobbs up top, down in the pit lane. Guy Hobbs and Calvin Fish, who are on board with Scott Sharp, who has been the fast guy for the Brumos Porsche squad in that Daytona prototype with Porsche power. Let's take a look at the standings. At this point, 20 cars officially have turned in their transponders, meaning they will not be back on track. Right now, Jörg Bergmeister behind the controls of that Racers Group Porsche 911 GT3 RS. What a weekend they've had. 3 cars came, 2 cars crashed out spectacularly. 1 car is leading this race and could be the first GT car ever to win the Rolex. David Brabham in the Daytona prototype, 6 laps behind in second. In third, the Ferrari 360 GT. And then the action has been getting more exciting. David Murray, Scott Sharp, Kyle Petty. Sharp has moved past the 43 car of Petty, which is still stationary in the pits getting that right front brake fix. So we've had a change for 4th place. In 7th, Charles Morgan in the Chevy Corvette after a long stop. That car was built back in 1993 as an Oldsmobile to run in what is now the GTS class. It ran for 3 years, was put in the garage, brought out last year with Corvette bodywork, dusted off, and won 2 successive races. A little further back, Brian Cunningham in that BMW M3. They've stopped on track a couple of times. The car's been brought in, but they are back out there pounding.
Also a very old car, too.
Another car with a long history, including a championship in the old USRRC. Leader in the SRP2 class. 20th place, but waiting to get back on. Some of the cars out of the race. Jim McCallion had that spectacular crash in the number 68. Each of these cars with a story to tell. Nikolai Fomenko, along with Alexei Vasiliev, Walter Lechner driving that car. First Russian drivers, but they will not see the end of their very first Rolex 24. In 34th, David Donahue, one of the Brumos Fab Car Porsches that tested for full 24-hour race distance. A total of 5,000 miles. But David Hobbs proving once again you can test all you want to, but it doesn't count until the race comes.
So these 24-hour races, which again we said at the top of the show, you know, the track here has changed very little over the years, and the thing that does not change at all is that these 24-hour races are an incredible grind. And if there had been odds on this race, the Brumos Porsches would have been very, very, very short odds, and yet both of them had all sorts of weird problems.
Coming up on 3 hours remaining in the Rolex 24, you're looking at the Morgan Dollar Chevrolet Corvette running 7th in the overall, 1st in GTS. Just haven't come off the pit lane after a long pit stop for a steering rack problem. Let's learn more on their story with Calvin in the pits.
Well, Bob, there are 8 former overall winners in the field this year, and one is Jim Pace, won it back in '96, and you guys have a good car going right now. You changed the rack recently. How is the rest of the 46 car operating?
Well, Calvin, right now the rest of the car is doing great. Temperatures are all nice and cool. Motors running strong. Gearbox is, still shifting great.
I got it's a real good driver lineup with Rob and Charles Morgan and with Lance Nork. You know, everybody's just been thinking 24 hours, 24 hours. We had a little setback in the first stint yesterday, but since then we've just stuck with our game plan, doing laps. Car feels good. You know, it's good to be at Daytona.
Always good to be at Daytona. You've done a number of these races, Jim. Talk about this year with the parity of the classes, the speeds are not that different. You guys probably have a little bit more top end than most of the cars out there, but how's it out there running with the other classes this year?
Well, I won here years ago in a GTU car, which was the slowest, and then I won in the World Sports Car overall, which was the fastest, and then now I had experience on both ends. This is much better because you don't have that 30, 40 mile an hour speed differential on the bank. I mean, basically all of the four classes out there are running roughly the same speed. A little difference in braking and cornering, but the speed on the banking and the maneuvering around in traffic, I think, is a lot safer. Along with the new bus stop, the new chicane is so much nicer, so much safer.
You guys have a pretty big lead now. The 24 car was in the pits for a while. How much longer is left in this race, Jim?
Well,
look at that watch, guys.
Yeah.
Just under 3 hours, and that's what you get when you win this thing overall, a beautiful Daytona.
That's right. According to the 96 winning Rolex, it's just under 3 hours.
Nice one, mate. Good luck the rest of the way.
I found those in the truck the other day, a whole bunch, just like that. They were $10. Yeah, they were great.
Yeah, on a street corner in New York, maybe. Jim Pace is a great guy, a driver coach, coached a number of terrific young racing drivers. Sadly, a couple of years ago, he lost his wife and put racing aside completely for quite a while. But here he is back on the horse, and it's great to see the pride of little Monticello, Mississippi, back out on the racetrack. Let's go to Guy Hobbs.
Yeah, just a quick update on Jim Pace. I'm going to make sure I'm around Victory Circle, because when he did win, he took his watch off and threw it, his old watch off, threw it into the crowd, and then just put the Rolex on and forgot the old watch. So hopefully, if he wins this time, he'll throw his old Rolex off, and I'll be out in the crowd somewhere to grab it.
It'd be like the bride tossing the bouquet, huh?
And then you'll be able to give it to me, Guy.
No.
Well, I must say, again, if I'd been a betting man, I would have been a bit like Andy Wallace, who's driving with the 24 car. Although I thought that the GT car might win this race, I really thought in the back of my mind that the GTS probably had the best chance. And the Morgan car, although it's leading the class, is 40 laps behind the lead, not where you'd expect it to be. And the Polycan Wallace car is 10 laps behind them. So the GTS car's not doing as well as I thought they would.
Quick story, and I hope I'm not speaking out of school here. Little known fact, years ago, or for several years of this race, the Rolex watch was presented to the winning team. One watch was presented. A few years ago, they decided that wasn't quite the way we ought to do things. Let's give it to all of the winning drivers. And as you just saw on the wrist of Jim Pace, they are beautiful watches to have. And here's a guy going for one. Timo Bernard in the race-leading and potentially history-making Porsche 911 GT3 RS from Racers Group. Coming up February 22nd and 23rd, the opening of the Kart Champ Car season as Bridgestone presents the Champ Car World Series powered by Ford, and we will go to St. Petersburg, Florida to an all-new street race along the waterfront in one of Florida's most spectacular cities. The open-wheeled cars at their best. One of America's vacation paradises. Join us for the opening of the kart season here on Speed Channel, February 22nd and 23rd. Well, down in the Mechanical Trauma Center, that is the pit lane here in the late stages of the Rolex 24. Work continues on the number 43 car, and Calvin is there.
Here, Bob, the rotor is now back on, the caliper is on, the team are now getting ready to bleed the systems there. They've changed the radiator, so I'd say about another 5 minutes this car should be back on course. They have done the driver change. Carl is sitting in the car right now, but Peter Barron was behind the wheel when that incident occurred. Peter, this is always a tough race, and particularly this year we're seeing the GT cars really believing that they have a shot at the overall victory, and that's probably made the pace a little bit harder for you guys.
You look at the Butler car out there, they've been going 10-10s the entire race. They've just put on a heck of a pace out there, and we've been trying to do everything we can to keep up with them. They got a great aerodynamic setup right now that's giving them a lot of straight line speed. And we had more of a downforce setup, thinking it's going to be a slower pace race, and that came back to bite us. We had a couple problems with tires, just trying to stay on the pace, burn enough rear tires. And now this incident here, where it was the last 2 years, we've been on the last lap battling for a position. That's every second counts. And, going for it, thought the guy gave me a position, and I guess he didn't. But it's a heck of a GT battle. The prototypes, I'm surprised that, that a lot of teams put a good effort together for the prototypes, and it's good to see some out here at the finish. It's going to be a strong race for them, but the GT cars, Bucky's out there thinking he can do it, and it'd be nice to see a Porsche do it.
Yeah, I mean, you're sounding like you're a little worn out. It's been a long night, but you got worn out in that first hour. We saw some spectacular in-car shots. You completely sideways sprint car on this thing around Daytona.
We had a little bit of problem in qualifying with the tires, and we tried a completely different setup for the race. From the in-car, you can tell we missed, and we went right down to the cords on both rear tires. Half of the tires were white, so I was very thankful that stint was over.
All right, Peter, nice job. Well, that's the story here in one of the Porsche camps. Let's go down to one of the Ferrari camps with Guy.
I'm down here, thanks Calvin, with Ralph Kellners, who's just stepped out of the car. Ralph, you had troubles at the bus stop, and it literally became a bus stop for you because the gearbox went out on you.
Yeah, I shifted down into fourth gear. We take it in fourth gear, and suddenly went into neutral. And I had to go straight because usually you need the brakes to slow you down a bit. So I had to go shoot straight, and then it wouldn't find any gear, so it stayed in neutral. And only after I figured that I have to turn off the main switch, not only the ignition, the car started selecting gears again, and then I pulled off.
Really, you've had a pretty bad ignition day, or transmission day, because on the second lap of the race you pulled in because you couldn't get second gear.
Yeah, it was all minor glitches that cost us quite a bit of time. But actually, I mean, the gearbox lasted. I guess we have somewhere a twitch in the electrics, and yeah, it cost us probably altogether maybe 2 laps. But it would have never put us in the position to win this race.
Well, but despite all those troubles, you're still third overall and second in class.
I think in the beginning that's what we were hoping to come third here, at least in the GT class. We knew that the GP cars the Daytona prototypes are going to have problems because of reliability. And the GT cars, we knew that the Porsches are going to be very quick and difficult to beat. So we're very happy where we are now, very happy.
All right, well, there's still 3 hours to go. You made it to the podium last year. Hopefully you can make it back to the podium this year.
I hope so. Thank you.
All right, Ralph Kellners. And just a quick update too. I just spoke to Kevin Buckler. With that 6-lap lead they have, he has just told me they are completely backing off on everything as far as their driving is concerned, as far as everything else is concerned. They try and conserve the car, try and make history. He will get in the car next on their next car.
Thanks very much, guys. There you see the first and second place cars running nose to tail. Now, obviously, there's a 6-lap gap between them, but interesting to see the timeless shape of the Porsche 911. Overall winners at the Rolex 19 times, and perhaps the future of the prototype division going by. The Daytona prototype, the Multimatic Ford, in the hands of Scott Maxwell is behind the wheel right now. David Bravo, excuse me. Now, I had a chat with Martin Rapoff, who is the director of competition and race director for this race. And he knows how sharp some of you Speed Channel fans are when it comes to sports cars, so we want to not mislead you in any way. When we say a GT car has never won this race, actually a car from the GT class has won the race in the past. But what has never happened is when a car from the lowest of the class structure in every race, and of course there have been multi-class races virtually from the beginning here at Daytona, in what is now the Grand American Road Racing Series. A car from that lowest class in terms of speed, technology, and so forth has never won, and that is essentially the context of what could happen today as a GT, what is now the GT class, in the form of this very, very high-tech Porsche 911 GT3 RS, could win this race for the first time. The crew goes to work via driver change. Out comes Timo Bernard.
Kevin Buckler getting in.
Boy, this team has been such a great story. Here they are leading the race. They've been running like clockwork, have led since about 1:45 this morning.
Ooh, scary, that is.
Now keep in mind,
every time I led one of these races, I never won any of them, but I had some awfully long leads a lot of time.
Think of the role they're on coming in. They won this race in class last year. They won the 24 Hours of Le Mans in class last year, and now they're in position to win the overall.
would imagine they're taking so much care on this pit stop, giving the old screen a good clean, because I'll tell you what, out there the sun is getting up pretty high now, but earlier on this morning, like last night, very, 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 very bright here as you go into the dawn and, of course, as you go into the night.
I can remember years ago when Kevin Buckler was a club racer from California, busting into the pro ranks. Here he is.
Three cars, be a match
wins.
It looks like it might have a little crack in the windscreen. Right on the right-hand corner of the windscreen there. Seems to be that way. And obviously, you know, you've got to be just a bit lucky. Those bit early to start talking about luck, yeah, with another 3 hours to go. I mean, just nothing. That thing that happened to Peter Barron with that, what was ostensibly a back marker, was just one of those things that you had no idea it's going to happen to you.
Timo Bernard just got out. Guy Hobbs is with him.
Just got out of the car, you're looking pretty fresh and able and having a good time out there.
Yeah, it's actually no problem. We're slowing down a little bit, keeping the rest down for the engine. So everything looks fine. Car's running perfectly, no problems.
Now, did Kevin give you instructions to slow down, back off once you got that 6-lap lead?
Yeah, he actually did.
All right, Hall, well, we'll try and get back into you, and you got about 3 hours of patience sitting around to wait. You won't get back in the car now, will you?
I don't know yet. I have to ask for it, but I don't think so.
All right, just going to sit here and pace and wait to see how things work out. Thanks, Jorge.
Boy, what a day for this team. And what a moment it would be if they can go on and win the race. But that story is about 3 hours away, so let's not get ahead of ourselves. See, the GTS 24 car is back on track, having dealt with their problems. Late in a race like this, pretty much everyone has problems, but not the car in P1. We'll be back. It's been an interesting year for Kevin Buckler and his Racers Group team. Last year, 3 cars across the finish line winning the GT class at the Rolex 24. Then in June at Le Mans, once again, it was the Sky Blue Racers Group Porsche 911 winning class, and perhaps the world's best known for winning the race. This weekend, problems for the team. Andrew Davis colliding with Larry Oberto, spun car on a restart. As you can see, an impact that left both racers very lucky to be unhurt. And then this morning, by dawn's early light, Jim McCallion was bumped off track at the high-speed kink on the infield, spun backwards into the fence. He too was all right, but 2 of the Racers Group Porsches were done for the 41st Rolex 24. The third car, however, in the hands of the team owner, Kevin Buckler, Michael Schramm, Timo Bernard, and Jörg Bergmeister, have led since just before the 12-hour mark of this race, up into this moment. You're watching live on board with Kevin Buckler. Less than 3 hours, coming up on 2 hours and 40 minutes to go in this race, and they have a 6-lap lead over the second place Daytona prototype in the hands of David Brabham. Let's look at our Porsche keys to the race from yesterday. Fuel mileage we thought would be a factor, and it certainly has been as the teams attempt to minimize the number of pit stops they make. Pit stop execution is key not only when you have a routine stop, but more importantly, when you have a problem. And we've seen an awful lot of mechanical heroics down there in the pit lane. The pace, well, we heard Michael Schramm say earlier they thought they would run to a pace and that the pace would be slower, and it bit them. They had to pick up the pace and run hard. Traffic trouble, even with an entry of 44 cars, about half what this race has seen. We have still seen the effects of traffic, and Jim McCallion can tell you all about that.
Jim McCallion, of course, and of course Peter Barron in the Orbit car, which in fact has only just left the pits. It lost 20 laps after that little incident with the back marker going through turn 1 when the guy came down on him, broke the front disc there, and obviously did some other damage to the radiator and the front fender itself. That what looked like being a fairly quick repair in the end lost them over 20 laps, dropped them from 5th to 8th.
You see the numbers on Kevin Buckler. The Porsche Cup is not so much a championship as it is a trophy, an individual recognition from the Porsche factory toward their finest and most successful privateer driver. American winners of the Porsche Cup, there have been 4. Kevin Buckler, the most recent. I was there at the Stuttgart award ceremony in '94 when Price Cobb, C-O-B-B, won the Porsche Cup. And in fact, Price Cobb is here this weekend. He's the team manager for G&W Motorsports. There's Kevin Kevin Buckler. Anthony Lazzaro running second in class in the Ferrari 360 GT. Johannes van Overbeek in the 83 car. David Murray also on that team. They were very strong. They were in the top 3 during the nighttime hours, but had to change a radiator, and you see they've dropped back.
You see, the Van Overbeek car had to change a radiator, and of course it was one of those things that you couldn't possibly schedule. It picked up some debris which put a hole in the radiator. I mean, how can you legislate against stuff like that? So you've got to have a bit of luck in these races as well.
Let's take a look at the Daytona prototype class. The 88 car, David Brabham, David Empringham, and Scott Maxwell chugging along. That gap is now 5 laps from the 66 Porsche back to David Brabham in the leading Daytona prototype. 59 car, Hurley Haywood and his team of drivers, 5th in the overall and 2nd in class. And then it's a good long way back to Darren Law in the number 8 BMW Picchio. 3 Daytona prototypes that are still circulating. In the GT Super class, Lance Norrick and Charles Morgan's Corvette running with Jim Pace, the 96 winner, and Charles' son Rob cruising along in first place in class and 6th overall. Chased by a slew of those Mosler MT900Rs. And in the sports racing prototype 2 class, the only open top prototype class still in competition, and only temporarily so at the Grand American Road Racing Series. We saw the standings there. Oh, the 03 Marcos is smoking once again.
It's Coroy's car.
Oh, look at the oil in the pit lane. Calvin Fish, what's going on?
Well, they had a power steering problem and dropped about 2 quarts of power steering fluid here on the ground. The Grand Am officials are questioning the team as whether they have that problem fixed and whether it's going to leak fluid on the ground. Coroycer is the team owner, team driver. You probably changed the power steering fluid as well during that start, mate. What's the situation with the car? It's been a rough 24 hour for you thus far.
Well, we had a lot of gremlins. Now we lost the power steering. We tried to fix it, so we're going to bring it back in the pits again because it just blew a line again. So I don't know what, I think it's something to do with the valve, the pressure valve. But we tried to fix it and make it to the end.
You keep persevering here, Corey. You come back year after year. You love the Daytona race.
Yeah, it's a fantastic event. And the whole team likes it over here, and I think we're going to be back here next year again.
Well, this is a racer per and per right here, guys. He's got racing blood running through his veins. I used to race against Korbag in '82 over in Europe in Ford 2000, and he's a hard man on the racetrack, but a real gentleman off as well.
Peter van der Kolk of the Netherlands behind the wheel in this all-Dutch effort. They ran 2nd for a time in class last year, but it hasn't gone well for them this year. Let's ride along with Kyle Petty, who says he'd do a 24-hour race every weekend if someone would let him.
Turn 1 where his co-driver had that spotted bother, cost him 20 laps. National Horseshoe. Pretty slick and getting slicker as the temperature goes up.
Don't have cars running around dropping power steering fluid either. See the damage, the repairs, I should say, to the right front with perhaps the most used substance on race cars worldwide, tape. Calvin.
Well, the situation was that you guys have been mentioning how many laps and how many positions they lost. They got the right front corner fixed relatively quickly. A lot of damage there with the incident on course with Peter Barron in the number 30 car. But they had to bleed the coolant system as well. They changed one of the front radiators there, and it took them a long time, about 10 minutes, I believe, after the right front corner was fixed, to actually get that system completely bled, so they didn't send the car out there and do some damage to the motor. So that's why they lost so much time in that pit stop.
Thanks, Calvin. You saw the Marcos headed for the garage area, but Coroycer says they will work, they will try to come back, and they will be back next year for sure to the Rolex. Now, Cal Petty enjoys sports car racing so much. I know his stock car allegiance is to Daimler, Chrysler, and Dodge, but I wonder if he hasn't got a sporty car tucked away in the garage up there in Randleman somewhere.
He's got a couple, along with his motorbikes.
That's right. Big-time rider is Kyle Petty, of course, the founder of the charity ride across America every year. There's Scott Goodyear, and he's got a great story to tell with his teammates in the Brumos pits. We'll be back in just a moment.
Just a little after 8 here, local time at Daytona International Speedway. The Rolex 24 continues. Thank you for joining us. Lee Diffie with Jack Baldwin. Terry Borchella's in here with us as well. Brian Till and Chris Neville down in the pits. thank you for joining us. It's been an early start to the day, but we've had a fair bit of action. Jack Baldwin, talk us through that incident we just saw with Jim McCallion and the Racers Group Porsche.
Yeah, that big crash had just happened as he came across right here. He came straight across, and he hit this barrier right here. That barrier right there, that slowed him down, and that kept him from going across this racetrack, that's what they want to avoid right there. A car coming just like you saw right there, and he was going so fast, he would have gone across the racetrack and hit this guardrail right here. So
here is a replay, another replay of the crash. Watch to the right of your screen.
As he's moving really fast, but that barrier slowed him down and kept him, and here's the other barrier, right, here's another one. That barrier gave way. It diffused the impact. That's what you want. He's intact. He's in shape right there. He's okay. He's where he's supposed to be, in his driver's seat, strapped in, Hans device, the whole thing. No problem.
The bank
Porsche
did a fair bit too, Jack.
The bank slowed down, and it kept the car from crossing. If that car had gone without any obstruction and crossed the racetrack, it could have been a lot worse.
We are under our 10th full caution, and as you look at the leaderboard, that crash and this caution, not necessarily the crash, but the caution has helped that Ford Multimatic. It is right there now in a race for the outright lead with the Racers Group Porsche. Timo Bernhard has just taken over from Kevin Buckler. The young Brazilian Augusto Farfus is in there, second in class, third overall in the Ferrari 360. Then we've got the first SRP2 car, the Nissan Lucchini, and then Ralph Kellener's in the Risi Competizione Ferrari. Dave Murray in the 83 Porsche GT3. Some problems there as they wind down into sixth. Well, let's hear from David Brabham. Chris Neville is with him. This is interesting stuff for that team, Chris.
Yeah, David Brabham just brought the 88 back into pit lane. Very smooth pit stop. David Emperingham is back in the car. David, you just had a really serious stint out there. Pushed real hard to get back on the lead lap.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a real struggle to try and catch the number 66 car.
He is. So, and he went through a couple of barriers, which took some of that impact away and diffuses the impact. So
you hate to speculate on any type of mechanical, but he went off awful fast. It doesn't even look like he slowed down.
Leader coming in. The team down there looking on from the Racers Group. Let's have a look at a replay. This is in real time. Follow the group around. This is a real-time replay. Watch the right-hand side of your screen.
Whoa, boy, he just came straight across from the dogleg, wide open. It's like he went straight off, never made the left to the dogleg.
Or brakes, or you don't know.
And just, you know, he got it backwards. He got off, got backwards. When you hit the grass, I mean, all bets are off at that point. Once the four wheels are in the grass, you go in the direction the momentum is taking you at that point.
It's such a fast
no longer have any
track
control, and that is the fastest part of the infield for sure. The only.
Well, let's have a look at exactly where this is. Jack Baldwin will talk us through. We'll have a look at the track map, and Jack, if you wouldn't mind pointing out, firstly to our viewers exactly where it is. Secondly, what happened.
Right in here is where the car, as he came off, he came right here at this fast dog leg. He came off and came straight across here and went through this barrier right here and crashed right here. This is where he's sitting right now.
So Jim McCallion is out of the car. That is a very positive sign. A man who plays a major role in motorsport in this country, who now runs the Toyota Grand Prix of Long Beach. Very, very busy with the Champ Car Series. Has been around a long time, and also is very involved in the race at St. Pete here in Florida. The opening round of the World Series. Let's take another look at that as Jim McCallion walks away, and is extremely fortunate to be able to walk away. We'll have a look at that again, and you get to see the full impact and just how fast Jim left the circuit. Again, as we follow the cars around, as they head away from the camera, watch to the right-hand side of your screen. You will see the Racers Group Porsche come right about now.
There he comes, sailing through, hits that guardrail. That actually helped it out a little bit. But if you notice, the car is intact. I mean, the car and where he's sitting is, see right here, right there. That's where the driver sits. And,
well, the owner of all three Racers Group Porsches has got enough on his plate with leading this race, and now he's seen his second car go out. Let's hear from Kevin Buckler.
Well, Lee, I'm down here. Obviously, a lot of concern in the Racers Group pit. I mean, they were very high with the race lead, but obviously very upset about what just happened. As long as we make sure that Jim's okay. Kevin, have you heard anything from the 68 team or from Jim?
No, I just went around the corner there and I saw the car upside down, and I didn't know who was driving. I just want to make sure the driver's okay. It looks like he's climbed out and he's okay. You know, I don't know why there's a barrier there. Went in a couple of years ago. It's not a very good place for a barrier. We've said that for a long time. So.
Well, it's nice to see Jim out of the car. As far as the 66 car goes, we'll go to the high points here. You just got out of the car. Everything good?
Yeah, everything's really good. Timo's in. We're running as hard as we can go right now.
Now, you know, as far as the 68 car goes, was that the car that won Le Mans last year, or
that was the Daytona winner from last year?
Well, very disappointing.
We're doing great too.
Obviously, very disappointing for the Racers Group team, leading overall. But you don't want to see a car go out. You certainly don't want to see it go out like that.
And well, if Kevin can hang on and win this race, that's one thing, but it's been a very expensive weekend for him as well. Two of the three Racers Group Porsches out of this Rolex 24. We're about to take a short break, but let's have a look at that replay one more time. Jim McCallion in the 68 car. Boy, the speed of that car was arrested quickly, but he is okay. You're back live on Speed Channel. The Rolex 24 at Daytona, the famed Daytona International Speedway. What a place, what a venue, what a racetrack. Steeped in history and loved by so many drivers and fans. We've got a beautiful day here in Florida, and the drivers are very passionate about this place. Let's hear what they have to say about the great Daytona.
I've done Daytona, you know, every year from 1971, I think was the first year I've been here. So I love this place.
It's really special when you drive through that bridge the first time and see the size of this bowl. You could probably put 3 or 4 football stadiums inside here, so it's real intimidating the first time you come.
Daytona is fantastic because when you go in the bank and you feel the car, the downforce, and the speed goes up, and it's fantastic. It's amazing. Well, you have to drive to understand what you feel when you're driving.
And it just gives you sort of Days of Thunder kind of feeling, and it's you can sort of appreciate the history of the place.
Daytona to me means all the great drivers that have ever come through here. My grandfather, who won the first race at this speedway, my father, who's won here, you know, I guess 7 times. You look at A.J. Foyt, you look at Peter Gregg, you look at guys who have won the sports car race here. The old Paul Revere race they used to run here before the Firecracker 400 with the old style racing and stuff. So I think it just means a lot of history, and to win here and to put your name on that trophy just means history.
Terrific to hear from some of those guys. Kyle Petty, still hard at it. Terry Borchella, Jack Baldwin. Tell us your thoughts. What does Daytona mean to you?
I've been racing here for a long time too. Not as long as most of these guys, but 1983, actually 1981, I came here as a 14-year-old kid and raced go-karts. They have the World Championship, the WK Championships here for karts every year, and I just remember going 130 miles an hour as a kid, and I just fell in love with the Speedway. My dad and I used to come before that to watch the 500, and I remember my dad talking about the Speedway when they used to race over on the beach, and I actually graduated from college here, and I'd hear the cars running, and I just dream about racing professionally, and I just, I love the place. It's great.
Well, when I was a kid, I remember very clearly growing up in Tampa, my father would bring me over here, and I would beg him to bring me over here. We would camp out in turn 4 up against the fence in old Plymouth and watch the 500, and I used to look at my dad as a little kid, look at my dad and say, Dad, I'm going to race here one day. I promise you I'm going to race here one day. And that was my dream. And I still remember driving through that tunnel the very first time. It was a thrill.
You ride with the Orbit Racing GT3, Kyle Petty at the wheel, and currently that Orbit car is 5th in class, 7th overall. That's an improvement on where they were at the Rolex 24 last year. They ended up finishing 7th in class, so things are on the up and up. Chris Neville, what's happening?
Well, the team really looked like a solid contender earlier in the weekend, but they've had their share of problems. Yesterday in the daylight hours, they had 2 right rears blowing out. Another one of these Porsches with problems on the Dunlop. Back upstairs to you guys.
That's the 68. Excuse me, Chris. Yes, sorry about that. That is a massive crash. That is the second Racers Group Porsche. There's been 3 here this weekend. We know that the 67 is out, and that is the 68. That is a massive crash. Whoa, Jim McCallion.
Is that who's in the car?
We are pretty sure that Jim McCallion is in the car.
All right, that is at the exit of, on the inside of the racetrack, at the exit of turn 5 on the infield. And that's
a strange spot. He must have maybe had contact.
He got off. He would typically get off on the outside and come back across. And how he got upside down, we'll have to take a look at this.
Oh gosh, he went through 1. I think he went through 1. Went through turn 1.
Okay, okay.
Wow.
And he came straight.
Again, this is the Racers Group Porsche. Jim McCallion is the driver. This is the sister car to the race leader. And that was a very fast and frightening looking crash. Jack,
what? The car, the way that car, I mean, he's safe in there. There's a lot of bars. It's a good, secure area where